Chapter 2449. 2 days later, Zhao Fu had subdued two of the biggest lords and was about to head to the next one. At this time, news came from the royal palace, saying that the Thunder Nation had sent an envoy, asking when the princess would be married off. Hearing this, Zhao Fu lightly laughed and had no intention of going back. He had someone reply, "The princess is not getting married. The marriage is cancelled." Now, that Hillary was Zhao Fu's woman, how could he let her marry someone else? Moreover, Hillary didn't want to marry him. Of course, the order was given by Zhao Fu, who was controlling the old king. After the guard received the order, he quickly returned and passed on the message to the messenger of the Thunder Nation. When the messenger of Thunder Nation heard that Lock Nation broke the engagement, he went back with an ugly expression. After hearing about this, the Thunder Kingdom's royal family flew into a rage. This was because the two kingdoms had already discussed the marriage, and they were prepared to marry the princess of Lock Kingdom. However, now that they had broken the agreement, the Thunder Kingdom had lost a lot of face. Moreover, they had wanted to use the princess of Rock Country to intervene in Rock Country, but now their plan could be said to have failed completely. The king of the Thunder Kingdom was a middle-aged man with a coarse beard. He sat on the throne and said angrily, "Since the Rock Kingdom dares to break the promise, we'll teach them a lesson." The ministers didn't have any objections and supported the Thunder Kingdom's decision. This time, no matter what, they had to cede a portion of Bylock Kingdom's territory. The Thunder Nation immediately gathered their troops and declared war on the Lock Nation. After hearing about this, the lords of Lock Country started to panic. The Thunder Country was much more powerful than their Lock Country, and Lock Country was already in a bad situation. If they fought, Lock Country would most likely lose. If the Kingdom of Rock lost, they could only admit defeat and cede a large amount of territory and wealth. Their interests would be greatly affected. If Rock Country was destroyed, then the lords would have nothing. The lords hurriedly rushed to the palace. After hearing about this, Zhao Fu was quite surprised. He had never thought that the Thunder Kingdom would suddenly attack the Rock Kingdom, so he immediately returned to the palace. Zhao Fu controlled the old king to sit on the throne, while Zhao Fu stood beside him. Below him stood the various lords. Before, they hadn't been willing to come, but now that something big had happened, they all ran over. They spoke one after another. "Your Majesty, please take back your decision and marry the princess to the prince of the Thunder Nation. That way, we can have peace and avoid war. Your Majesty, please think for the sake of the Rock Nation and your people. Marry the princess to the Thunder Nation. Rock Nation doesn't want war. Your Majesty, we were in the wrong this time. We shouldn't have broken off the engagement. It's understandable that the Thunder Nation is angry. We should take the princess and some treasures to ask for peace. I'm sure the Thunder Nation won't mind. King, this time you have to listen to us. Right now, Rock Nation is in a very bad situation. They can't defeat Thunder Nation. You can't let Rock Nation suffer because of your daughter. Yeah, you can't let the princess be so willful. As the princess of Rock Country, she should sacrifice herself for Rock Country. From now on, she will be the hero of Rock Country and will receive our respect. They are all right. Your Majesty, please make a decision quickly. Otherwise, it'll be too late for the Thunder Nation to attack." Hillary, who was clad in armor, looked at these lords angrily. These lords claimed that they were doing this for the Rock Nation, but they were mainly thinking about their own interests. If they all liked Rock Nation so much, then Rock Nation would not be like this. The king had given the order for them to come to the palace, but a large group of people had been unwilling. Now, they still had the face to force her to marry the Thunder Nation's prince. Hillary felt quite angry, but she did not say anything. She turned to look at the cloaked man. He would take care of this matter, and she trusted him. Seeing Hillary look at him, a trace of a smile appeared on Zhao Fu's face, and he looked down at the lords trying to persuade the old king as he said, "That's enough. All of you stop." The lords looked quite displeased because even the king had not spoken to them like this. Yet this guard dared to speak to him like this. An arrogant young man berated, "Who are you? Do you think this is a place for you to speak without any rules?" Zhao Fu looked at this young man and did not seem angry at all. He smiled as he said, "Since you love Rock Nation so much, Now is the time for you to make contributions. I don't need to find you all. Hearing this, everyone felt quite confused and did not understand what Zhao Fu meant. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as a massive evil and dark aura flooded out like a tidal wave, inundating the lords. The lords felt quite startled and their bodies felt cold, as well as a wave of terror. Swish, 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 countless pale white roots grew out of Zhao Fu's body, giving off an evil power as they rapidly stretched towards the lords. The lords looked terrified and wanted to run, but facing the pale white roots, they were unable to resist at all. They were all wrapped up by the pale white roots, and massive amounts of demonic power flowed into them. The lords were quickly controlled by Zhao Fu without much resistance, as Zhao Fu was far more powerful than them. Following this, Zhao Fu withdrew the pale white roots, and the lords stood there like puppets. Zhao Fu gave a trace of smile as he said, "Go back and gather all of your forces." The lords obeyed and turned to leave. Hillary looked at the man in front of her in shock. Ordinary people would not be able to take control of Rock Nation so easily. What should we do now? Hillary smiled as she looked at Zhao Fu and asked. Zhao Fu went up and hugged her as he said, "Gather all of our forces to fight against Thunder Nation. I want to see how your card world fights." Hillary's face became red. This was the first time she had been hugged by a man in front of so many people. Now that Zhao Fu had taken control of Rock Nation, she did not resist and leaned into Zhao Fu's embrace. But Thunder Nation has a great advantage, and Rock Nation will most likely lose. Zhao Fu smiled confidently as he said, "With me here, Rock Nation won't lose." Hillary trusted Zhao Fu and smiled as she nodded. Following this, all of Rock Nation's forces gathered on the city walls. There were 500 million Stage 2 soldiers in total, while Thunder Nation sent out 800 million Stage 2 soldiers to attack. They had 300 million more soldiers than Rock Nation. Most importantly, their morale and strength were slightly higher than Rock Nation's. If they really fought, Rock Nation would not have an advantage and would most likely lose. Zhao Fu stood on the city walls and hugged Hillary as he looked at Thunder Nation's army, looking incredibly confident. Peak. Chapter 2450. The people from the Thunder Kingdom looked quite confused. They had thought that they would see the King of Lok, but they had never thought that it would be a man wearing a cloak. Moreover, he was hugging Hela, who should have been married to the Thunder Kingdom's princess. This was a public humiliation to the Thunder Kingdom. The Thunder Kingdom's crown prince was a well-built young man. Seeing his woman being hugged by another man, he looked quite furious and said, "Royal father, this time we'll make the Lok Kingdom pay a heavy price." The Thunder Kingdom's king looked quite furious and nodded before looking at Zhao Fu and asking, "Who are you?" Zhao Fu replied, "I'm the king of the Lok Kingdom and the princess man." The people from the Thunder Kingdom looked quite confused. How could such a large kingdom like the Lok Kingdom suddenly have a new king? It seemed that it was this person's decision to break off the engagement. The Thunder Kingdom's king said coldly, "Since you've made such a decision, you should know the consequences." Zhao Fu lightly laughed. "Do you think I'm afraid of you?" The Thunder Kingdom's king felt quite furious. There was nothing else he could say. He had to use force to subdue this person. As such, the Thunder Kingdom's king gave the order to attack. Boom! Countless soldiers wearing violet armor gave off a massive aura as they flooded towards the city walls, their aura shaking the surroundings. Because Zhao Fu did not understand how to fight in the card world, he gave the command to Hela, who was also a general. Hela stood in front of the city walls and ordered the archers to prepare. The archers drew their bows and aimed at the Thunder Kingdom soldiers. Swish, swish, swish. The sound of the air being torn could be heard as arrows containing immense force shot out, drawing arcs in the air and shooting towards the Thunder Kingdom soldiers like raindrops. The Thunder Kingdom soldiers at the front released cards from their bodies and floated in front of them, giving off boundless light and forming massive rectangular shields of light. Bang! 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 One arrow after another slammed into the shield of light, causing a series of sounds to ring out. The shield of light blocked almost all of the arrows, and only a few cracks appeared on it. The Thunder Nation's army continued to charge towards the city walls. Some of the people in the middle took out cards, which turned into countless motes of light that covered the soldiers. The soldiers' bodies actually flew up and quickly flew toward the city walls. On the Lock Kingdom's side, they also took out cards and threw them forwards. The cards turned into streams of water that contained immense power as they rushed towards the Thunder Kingdom's side. The massive impact of the water not only sent some of the soldiers flying back, but it also shattered some of the light shields and sent the soldiers flying back, coughing up a large mouthful of blood. Lei Mingwu took out many cards and tossed them forward. One by one, the cards turned into bolts of lightning that flashed through the air and flew forward. On the Country of Rock side, cards flew out one after another, giving off countless rays of watery light that spread out in all directions, forming a huge watery barrier that covered the defensive wall. Crackle! Bolts of lightning smashed against the defensive barrier, causing sparks to fly everywhere and massive sounds could be heard. However, the defensive barrier was able to block all of the lightning. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as a group of 1,000,000 cavalrymen wearing violet armor and riding large horses rushed out from the side, giving off a massive aura as they quickly rushed towards the city walls. Cavalry Corps. Zhao Fu's gaze was focused on an army. He had heard from Hillary that the power of cavalry corps in the card world was incredibly terrifying and was not something that ordinary soldiers could compare to. It was said that knights could obtain territory and become a lord, and knights were a symbol of honor and status in the card world. Cavalry Corps was made up of knights, and each of them had extraordinary power. The card world's laws also gave them some region power, and their equipment and horses were all developed and nurtured by the kingdom. Each piece of equipment was incredibly valuable. Cavalry Corps formed like this naturally had terrifying power, and they were the most powerful type of army in the card world. They were usually controlled by kingdoms, as this could affect the direction of a kingdom. The cavalrymen quickly rushed towards the city wall, their bodies giving off countless violet arcs of lightning. Each of the violet arcs of lightning gave off terrifying power, and the arcs of lightning linked together to form massive arcs of lightning. Crackle, crackle, crackle. Purple lightning covered the surroundings, causing the soldiers' hairs to stand on end. The ground gave off many arcs of lightning, and some places were charred black and cracked. That power seemed to be able to destroy the world. After the violet arcs of lightning formed, the cavalrymen's speed increased by 10 or so times. They were like massive bolts of lightning that struck the defensive barrier in an instant. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded out as countless violet arcs of lightning spread out. A shock wave spread out, causing the defensive barrier to instantly collapse. The city wall violently trembled, and that terrifying aura caused everyone's bodies to instinctively tremble. After the shock waves dissipated, there was a massive dent in the city wall, and a massive hole had almost been smashed into the city wall. At that moment, the cavalrymen turned their horses around and ran back, preparing to once again charge. Zhao Fu looked at this scene in shock. This cavalry corps' power was indeed monstrous. Even the attacks of 100,000,000 Stage 2 soldiers would not be able to break through the barrier, but it had been instantly shattered by a cavalry corps of 1,000,000 cavalrymen, and the city wall had almost collapsed. Hillary's face became pale, and she immediately ordered the archers to attack the returning cavalrymen. Swish, swish, swish. The sound of the air being torn could be heard as arrows containing immense power and a massive aura shot toward the cavalry corps. Crackle, all of the cavalrymen gave off violet light, forming a formless electric field. As the arrows flew over, their bodies gave off arcs of lightning before shattering and falling to the ground. The Thunder Kingdom's people gave off a trace of a smile. This battle was quite beneficial to them. If the Lock Kingdom could still retaliate, that would be for the best. Otherwise, they might just destroy the Lock Kingdom. When that time came, they would properly humiliate that person and trample the entire Lock Kingdom beneath their feet, making them suffer the consequences of offending the Thunder Kingdom. The Thunder Nation's crown prince stared at Hillary. After defeating the Rock Nation, he would kill all the men of the Rock Nation's royal family and bring the women back to his palace. He definitely wouldn't let Hillary off. He would make her regret it. Swish, swish, swish. By now, the Thunder Kingdom's army had reached the city wall, and arrows containing immense force shot towards the city wall. The Lock Kingdom could only raise their shields to block the countless arrows. Peak. Chapter 2451. Cards appeared in front of Thunder Nation's soldiers, turning into motes of light that surrounded them. The soldiers quickly flew up the city walls and started a fight with Lock soldiers. Apart from bringing out ladders to scale the city walls, the soldiers on the ground also used many cards. Vines that were as thick as arms madly grew all the way to the top of the city walls, and the soldiers could use these vines to rush up the city walls. On the city walls, Lock's soldiers vigorously counterattacked. They took out cards, and countless traces of water vapor formed balls of water, shooting down Thunder Nation soldiers. They shot out sharp arrows, piercing through Thunder Nation soldiers, causing blood to fly everywhere and cries to continuously sound out. Thunder Nation's soldiers also ferociously attacked, and their soldiers continuously rushed up the city walls. Arrows pierced through Lock's soldiers' bodies, and arcs of lightning struck the city walls, electrocuting many Lock soldiers. Both sides fought intensely, causing the scene to fall into chaos. Cries continuously sounded out as blood flew everywhere, and a terrifying aura shook the surroundings. Boom! A massive explosion once again sounded out as the cavalry corps once again gave off a terrifying aura as they rushed towards the city walls. Hillary turned to look at Zhao Fu. Now that the Crow Kingdom was in a disadvantageous situation, she could only see if Zhao Fu had the ability to turn the situation around. Facing her gaze, Zhao Fu gave a trace of a domineering smile and flew forwards, appearing in the air in front of the cavalrymen. Seeing Zhao Fu appear, the cavalry corps commander understood that he was most likely very powerful, or else he would not dare to block in front of them. The cavalry corps commander coldly roared and sent power into his spear. Countless arcs of lightning flew out. The other cavalrymen also sent power into their spears, causing countless arcs of lightning to appear as a powerful wave of lightning spread out. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the cavalry corps commander vigorously stabbed towards Zhao Fu with his spear, causing a massive violet lightning bolt to fly towards Zhao Fu with terrifying power. It seemed to be able to shatter the heavens, and the violet light illuminated the surroundings. Zhao Fu stretched out a hand. An Emperor Heaven Realm power flowed out of his palm, forming a black semicircular barrier that gave off a powerful aura. Bang! A loud sound rang out as the purple lightning struck the barrier, causing it to shatter. The purple lightning turned into countless arcs of electricity and dissipated. The power that this cavalry corps released was much greater than that of ordinary Emperor Heaven Realm experts. Ordinary weaker Emperor Heaven Realm experts would not be able to stop this cavalry corps at all. As the strongest soldier type in the card world, it was truly terrifying. However, after meeting Zhao Fu today, the situation immediately changed. All of the cavalrymen were stunned. They had never thought that Zhao Fu would be able to block their attack so easily. This person's strength was terrifying. Boom! While they were still in a daze, Zhao Fu pushed out with one hand, and a massive force slammed into the cavalry corps, sending the 100,000 cavalrymen flying back and causing blood to leak out of their mouths. Zhao Fu did not want the Rock Kingdom to suffer too many casualties, so he did not waste any more time. He spread out his hands, and his eyes flashed with an evil blood-red light as he said in a cold and evil voice, "Now, feel the fear." Boom! A deafening explosion rang out, and countless pale white roots grew out from the ground. They spread out in all directions and rapidly pierced into the ground, causing the ground to crack continuously. Countless roots continuously grew and covered the ground, and some attacked the Thunder Kingdom's soldiers in the surroundings. They wrapped around their bodies and devoured all of their power, and their bodies were absorbed by the roots like water. A boundless evil and dark aura flooded out like a heaven-toppling flood, and no one could stop it. Under this aura, countless people felt extreme terror. It was not just the Thunder Kingdom soldiers who stared at this scene in terror. The Rock Kingdom soldiers also looked terrified, and their bodies trembled. The countless roots continued to madly grow, and a massive branch grew out, giving off a shocking aura as it stretched towards the sky. A few sword-shaped leaves grew out, and it only stopped growing after reaching 10,000 meters. A massive black flower bud started to grow at the top and slowly blossomed. Boundless demonic light spread out, covering the heavens and earth. The sky darkened, as if all of the light had been devoured, becoming jet black. A massive blood-red star giving off a faint blood-red light and giving off world-suppressing power slowly appeared in the sky, giving off an enchanting aura. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the blood-red star exploded out with countless traces of blood-red aura, which flowed towards the countless people on the ground. Traces of blood-red aura entered the Thunder Kingdom's soldiers' bodies. The Thunder Kingdom soldiers felt a massive wave of dark and evil power enter them, and their bodies froze as their eyes danced with a blood-red light. The Thunder Kingdom soldiers in the surrounding tens of thousands of kilometers were controlled by Zhao Fu, and there were nearly 10 million of them. After being controlled by Zhao Fu, they were like puppets as they quickly rushed towards the Thunder Kingdom soldiers. Arg! Pain cries continuously sounded out as blood flew everywhere. The Thunder Kingdom soldiers were killed one by one because the Thunder Kingdom soldiers under Zhao Fu's control were not only stronger than before, but they did not fear death at all. They did not have any emotions and only knew how to kill. What Zhao Fu had unleashed was the evil flower bewitching world. This was the first time that Zhao Fu had unleashed the evil flower bewitching world. Back in the Heaven Awakened world, he had been worried that his identity would be exposed, so he had not used it. Other worlds, such as the Outer World and Alchemy World, greatly countered the evil flower bewitching world, so Zhao Fu had not unleashed it. However, there were no restrictions in this card world. The nearby cavalrymen's bodies gave off formless electric fields, blocking the blood-red aura and preventing them from being controlled by the evil flower bewitching world. However, looking at the demon-like person in front of the evil flower bewitching world, they felt immense terror and did not dare to become enemies with Zhao Fu. Seeing this scene, the Thunder Kingdom's king's expression was quite unsightly and shocked. Seeing the Thunder Kingdom's soldiers continuously die, the Thunder Kingdom's king hurriedly gave the order to retreat. The Thunder Kingdom's soldiers also looked terrified as they quickly retreated. This was the first time they had felt such terror, and it was because of a single person. The Rock Kingdom's soldiers also looked incredibly shocked, and they inwardly rejoiced that they were this person's subordinates. This person was simply too terrifying, and he was not an existence that they could contend against. He could create a disaster by himself. Hillary was also incredibly shocked. Now that she had personally witnessed Zhao Fu's true power, no wonder he was so confident. She now felt immense admiration toward Zhao Fu. The Thunder Kingdom's soldiers finally retreated, and Zhao Fu controlled them to chase after them for a while before stopping. Chapter 2452. Zhao Fu put away the evil spirit abyss flower, and the surroundings returned to normal. However, the Thunder Nation soldiers did not return to normal because the evil spirit Shi had already entered their minds and taken control of their bodies. However, because he lacked the evil spirit bewitching world's buffs, Zhao Fu could not control so many soldiers and could only affect them. Out of the 10 million Thunder Nation soldiers that had been controlled, only 3 million or so remained, and they stood there in a daze. Locke's countless soldiers could not help but cheer. They had won this battle and defeated the stronger Thunder Nation. They no longer had to worry about the Thunder Nation destroying Locke. Zhao Fu gave a trace of smile and returned to the city walls as he said to Hillary, "How was it? I didn't lie to you. I said that with me here, Locke won't lose." Hillary smiled and nodded. "You're so powerful." Zhao Fu went up and hugged Hillary as he smiled and said, Let's go back to the palace. Locke is now under my control, and we need to deal with the aftermath. Following this, Zhao Fu brought Hillary back to the palace. The various rulers' armies returned to their territories, but the other rulers also returned to the palace. Zhao Fu wanted to make Hillary the queen and have her control over Locke. Now that almost all of the rulers were under Zhao Fu's control, no one had any objections. As for the enfeoffment system, Zhao Fu could not solve it immediately because the enfeoffment system was deeply rooted in everyone's minds. Moreover, the card world had always been an enfeoffment system. Even though Zhao Fu controlled all of the rulers, if he abolished the enfeoffment system, the kingdom would fall into chaos, so he could not rush this matter. After the coronation ceremony, Hillary wore a golden crown and sat on the throne, giving off a kingly aura. The other rulers were still under her control and respectfully stood there. At the front stood 4 people, Hillary's father and 3 big brothers. Zhao Fu did as Hillary said and did not control the 4 of them for now. Now that they had regained control of their bodies, their faces were pale and unsightly as they furiously looked at Hillary. Hillary smiled as she said, "Father, big brothers, as my family, I will not harm you. Right now, you have no choice but to acknowledge me. Otherwise, you will always be in a state of being controlled." The old king looked at Zhao Fu and sighed. "Now that things have come to this, I recognize you as the king of Rock Country. I hope that you will lead Rock Country to prosperity." Rock Country was already under the control of Zhao Fu, and he himself was also under the control of Zhao Fu. Even if he objected, it would be useless. Moreover, with the help of Zhao Fu, they had defeated the powerful Thunder Country, and he knew how powerful Zhao Fu was. Perhaps submitting to Zhao Fu wasn't a bad thing. It might even make Rock Country stronger. As long as Rock Country became stronger, he could accept Rock Country submitting to someone else. After getting her father's approval, Hillary also revealed a happy smile. Her big brother's expression was cold, and he did not say anything. It was evident that he was an extremely ambitious person and did not want to be an ordinary prince without any power. Her second big brother looked at Hillary hatefully and did not say anything. However, he already wanted to kill this little sister of his. No matter who tried to steal his things, they had to die. Her third big brother did not want to be the king and smiled as he said, "Fourth sister, second big brother believes that you will be a good king and will make Rock Country powerful." Hillary smiled as she said, "Thank you, third big brother." She then looked at her big brother and second big brother and said, "Big brother, second big brother, since you're not willing to acknowledge me, I can only deal with you accordingly. Don't blame me, and I won't let my husband control you. In the future, you will stay in the palace." The big brother and second big brother inwardly let out a sigh of relief and did not dare to say anything else. If they angered Hillary and allowed Zhao Fu to control them, they would always be puppets, which would be worse than death. Moreover, as long as they could control their own bodies, they might have a chance in the future. Hillary looked at her father and third big brother and smiled as she said, "Father and third big brother, your statuses will still be the same as before. I won't mistreat you." The old king and third big brother smiled and nodded. News of Hillary becoming the new queen quickly spread to the surrounding kingdoms. Now, they all knew that Rock Country had an incredibly terrifying person who could defeat an entire kingdom by himself. They all knew about the war between Thunder Kingdom and Rock Country. Thunder Kingdom had lost more than 100 million soldiers, which was a massive loss. They had 800 million soldiers in total, and the kingdom had entered a state of emergency to defend against Rock Country's attack. Now that Rock Country had received the help of such a terrifying person, they started to feel afraid. As such, they all wanted to maintain good relations with Rock Country and sent messengers to congratulate them. Rock Country's status in the surrounding kingdoms also rose, and it was an incredibly terrifying kingdom that could not be easily offended. Zhao Fu did not care about these things. Now that he had personally witnessed a war in the card world, he felt that he could not underestimate it. They could use all sorts of cards, and the cavalry corps' strength was quite terrifying. Just 1 million cavalry had such an effect, If it was 10 million or 100 million, Zhao Fu felt that he would not be able to defend against them. They could also be said to be terrifying killing machines on the battlefield. They were unscrupulous and unstoppable machines. If someone did not know better and fought with the cavalry corps in the card world, they would definitely suffer heavy losses. Moreover, the cavalry corps had stats that countered large creatures. When facing creatures that were hundreds or thousands of meters long, they would be able to suppress these large creatures, and they would also be able to deal great damage. A group of 10 or so cavalry could deal with a creature that was hundreds of meters long, and a group of 100 cavalry could kill a creature that was 1,000 meters long. A group of 1,000 cavalry could kill a creature that was 10,000 meters long. If they used the cavalry corps to deal with a group of beasts, they would have a greater chance of winning. In the past, all of the worlds had large creatures such as the Godly World, Underworld, Heaven Awakened World, and Alchemy World. Because of their massive bodies, their defenses, life force, and strength were much greater than ordinary people's, and they could cause monstrous destruction. They could kill large numbers of enemies on the battlefield, and each of them was like a fortress. Every kingdom placed great importance on them, and if they had the ability, they would greatly nurture them. On all of the battlefields, there were large creatures, and if there were no large creatures on the battlefield, they would definitely be at a disadvantage. The destructive power of a large group of large creatures could affect the entire battle and could even decide the outcome of a battle. Chapter 2453. In fact, after the Heaven Awakened world became a kingdom, it would gain the ability to nurture large creatures, and every kingdom would have large creatures. Qin also had many large creatures, such as giant wolves, giant spiders, wyverns, large devil beasts, large aquatic beasts. They were very useful on the battlefield, and they were a big advantage for Qin. However, once they participated in the card world's battles, this advantage could become a disadvantage. Cavalry corps could suppress these large creatures, and most cavalry corps would win unless they used numbers to suppress them. Now that the card world's advantage was revealed, it was not as simple as it seemed. In the future, when fighting against the card world, Zhao Fu had to be careful. They would not be easy to deal with. Locke also had its own cavalry corps, but because it was a defensive battle, the cavalry corps could not go out to fight by themselves. Zhao Fu decided to research the cavalry corps in the card world. If Qin had a cavalry corps like this, they would be able to suppress the large creatures of the various worlds. Following this, Zhao Fu went to the cavalry corps. "Greetings, sir." A group of 10 or so cavalrymen respectfully bowed to Zhao Fu. They had been on the city walls at that time and knew how terrifying Zhao Fu's power was. They also knew that Locke was now under his control, so they were very respectful and excited toward Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu smiled and nodded as he looked at them. They were all wearing blue armor and holding blue spears and blue swords at their waists. They also had 3 blue rings, a blue pendant, and a blue command medallion at their waists. These pieces of equipment were all water-attributed, and they gave off treasure lights and powerful auras. They seemed to be made from top-quality water-attributed materials. Let alone cavalrymen, even ordinary people would have great power if they wore these pieces of equipment. The soldiers in front of him were not ordinary Stage 2 soldiers, but Stage 4 soldiers. Zhao Fu had people take out a set of cavalry equipment for him to study. He found that these pieces of equipment all had different attributes. What they were wearing was not ordinary equipment, but a type of relic. Compared to equipment, relic had a certain spirituality and some special abilities, and not everyone could use them. They were all created using the card world's unique methods, and other worlds could not create such relic. Perhaps this was because of the card world's source power and loss. Every world had its own source power. The outer world had chaos power, the alchemy world had alchemy factions, and the Heaven Awakened world had Heaven Awakened spirit power. Now that Zhao Fu controlled Locke, he could study the forging methods. However, if he used the card world's materials to create equipment, he would not be able to use it. This was because the world origin energy laws conflicted with the world origin energy laws. It would take a lot of time to resolve the conflict. This relic looked at the relic. This set of treasures had many pieces, including armor, helmets, boots, gloves, weapons, rings, pendants, and tokens. They were all made of blue metal and had ripples carved on them. There was even a fish carved on the armor. The totem of Crow was a spiritual fish. They all looked good and not ugly. They were all made of blue metal, and there were ripples engraved on them. There was also a fish engraved on the armor. The totem of Lock was a spirit fish, and they all looked quite good. The power that a relic gave off was much more powerful than the individual relic, and it increased all of its power. They had special names. The weapons were called water spirit weapons, and they had powerful attack attributes. The armor was called water spirit tools, and they had powerful defense attributes. The 3 blue rings were water ring power, water ring speed, and water ring recovery. The first was to increase power, the second was to increase speed, and the third was to increase recovery speed. The pendant was a blue, heart-shaped crystal tied to a thin string. It was called the water pendant, and not only could it increase water-attributed power, but it also had a water-attributed protective power. If there was any danger, the pendant would release a wave of water attribute power to defend. The last piece was a command medallion. There were many ripples engraved on it, and the word Lock was written on it. It was called Water Spirit Medallion. It allowed the rider's power and thoughts to be connected with the horse. Not only could the rider obtain the horse's power, but they could also obtain the horse's life force. When the rider's thoughts were connected, the rider would know what the horse was thinking, and the horse would know what the rider was thinking. Both parties could communicate well, and they could play a greater role. It also had a storage function. It could store the horse in the command medallion, and it could be released when needed. These were the attributes of the relic. The weapons increased attack power, the armor increased defense, and the accessories increased support attributes. Right now, this set of artifacts was only a mid-level artifact. This type of artifact was split into 6 types. The first type was low-level artifacts, which were usually made from low-level materials. They were usually used by weaker forces in the outer regions, and their power was the weakest. The second type was the medium relic, which was made with more precious medium relic. It was usually used by the middle regions, and some of the stronger factions in the outer regions had it too. It was stronger than the low relic. The third type was the high relic, which was made with extremely precious materials. It was usually used in the central regions, and some of the stronger factions in the middle regions also had it. It was stronger than the medium relic. The fourth type was the king grade relic, which was made with top-grade materials in the card world. It was much stronger than the previous 3 types, and it had a king's power. The most powerful factions in the card world would have a king grade cavalry corps. The fifth type was the emperor grade relic, which was made with rare top-grade materials in the card world. It was stronger than the previous 4 types, and it had a king's power. There were very few factions in the card world that had Emperor-grade cavalry corps, and it was rare to see them. The last type was the Emperor-grade relic, which was made with the most precious materials in the card world. It was many times stronger than the previous 5 types, and it was the most precious relic in the card world. It had powerful Emperor's power. In the card world, the Emperor-grade cavalry corps were legendary cavalry, and almost no one had seen them before. However, they had left behind many terrifying legends in the card world. It was said that a group of Emperor-grade cavalry corps could kill a celestial. Their power was terrifying to the extreme, and they could destroy the heavens and earth. It seemed that there were no factions in the card world that had them. Every grade of spirit artifact had a different forging method. Low-grade forging methods could only forge low-grade spirit artifacts, while intermediate-grade forging methods could only forge intermediate-grade spirit artifacts. As for Overlord-grade spirit artifacts, it required the best forging techniques in the card world. Chapter 2454. This was because the cavalry regiment had powerful equipment, which was a huge advantage. The reason why the cavalry was so powerful was also related to the cavalry itself. As mentioned before, the cavalry of the card world was not the same as the cavalry of other worlds. The card world could be called the world of knights. As long as one became a knight, one could become a lord. Knights were also a symbol of honor and status. Their status was much higher than that of knights in other worlds. Not only did various countries nurture their own knights, but countless people also trained hard in order to become an outstanding knight. This provided a large number of candidates. Everyone in the cavalry regiment was selected from countless people. Not only were they talented, but they were also very determined. With the support of a country's resources, their cultivation would grow very quickly. This explained why the Thunder Country's basic army was Phase 2, but the cavalry regiment was Phase 4. Other than the cavalry, the next was the knight profession. A talented knight with a set of relics could not be considered a member of the cavalry regiment. They could only be considered a powerful knight. The reason why the cavalry regiment possessed such terrifying strength was largely due to the knight profession. When a country was established in the card world, there would be a place for the knight profession change. Once you entered, you would become a knight. You would have the power of the knight profession and the power of the region's lord. On the other hand, it also showed that the knight regiment was something exclusive to the country. Without becoming a country's power, there was no way to have their own cavalry regiment. Zhao Fu went to the Lock Kingdom's Knight Profession Change Hall, where the cavalry corps was stationed. It was a platform made of white bricks and was about 1 meter tall. There were 3 stone steps around it, and it was 10 or so meters wide. There were 4 3-meter tall stone tablets around the platform. They were distributed in 4 directions. Each stone tablet had a knight carved on it. It gave off a heavy aura. The profession change here was not for a single person. One also needed to bring a horse to become a member of the cavalry regiment. Zhao Fu called over a soldier and brought a horse to the center of the profession change platform. As the most important thing for the cavalry, the horse would definitely not be ordinary. The horse that the country of Rock chose was a type of water scale horse that lived in the wetlands. It was not very tall and had blue scales. Its tail was slender like a rat's tail. A water scale horse would normally have a type 3 strength when it matured, and its attribute was water. This was because the cavalrymen of a cavalry corps could fuse with their horse's power, and the cavalrymen could also obtain the horse's life force. The more powerful the horses were, the more helpful they would be to the cavalrymen. It was best if the 2 cavalrymen and horses had the same attributes to avoid conflicts when fusing. Moreover, there was no rule that the cavalrymen's mounts had to be horses. Other creatures could also be used as replacements, such as wild boars, goats, black cows, and so on. As long as it could be ridden, it could be used as a mount for a cavalry regiment. Therefore, there are all kinds of cavalry regiments in the card world, such as the Eagle Cavalry Regiment, the Tiger Cavalry Regiment, and even the Dragon Cavalry Regiment. It was best if the mount's strength did not surpass the rider's. If the mount was too powerful, the rider would not be able to suppress it, and accidents would easily occur. By the way, Hillary was also a member of the cavalry regiment. The 12 female cavalrymen who followed her were also members of the cavalry regiment. There was also a small cavalry regiment of a few hundred people. Cavalry armies naturally had ranks, and there was a limit to the number of people, but there was no limit to the number of armies. When a kingdom was established, it had the right to establish a cavalry regiment. They could establish all kinds of cavalry regiments, but they could only have 100,000 people. This was because the strength of a cavalry regiment came from the kingdom, and it consumed the kingdom's power. If there were too many people, the kingdom would be greatly affected, and it might even fall into a weakened state. The higher the kingdom's rank, the higher the cavalry regiment's rank would be, and the more people they would have. Zhao Fu continued to look at the soldier on the platform. He led the water-scale horse to the center of the platform, and the 4 stone steels started to give off different kinds of lights as a massive aura spread out. Boom, 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 boom. 4 explosions sounded out as the 4 stone steels shot out 4 rays of light towards the soldier at the center, forming a square orb of light that covered the soldier and the water-scale horse. After a while, the square orb of light continuously shrank before disappearing, and the soldier and the water-scale horse appeared with a blue mark on their foreheads. The mark was like a river that gave off a blue light before disappearing. Now, not only had the soldier become a cavalryman, but the water-scale horse had also obtained a large amount of power. With this power, the water-scale horse's growth speed would become faster, and its strength would also become stronger. It also had some special abilities. Zhao Fu was now a person from the Heaven Awakened world, so he could not become a cavalryman. As such, he could only find out about this through other people. Zhao Fu asked the soldiers who had just changed professions to lead the horses in front of him and looked at their stats. The first feeling he had was that the soldier and the horse's aura were connected. The horse had the soldier's aura, and the soldier had the horse's aura. It was as if they were in a symbiotic relationship. If the cavalryman's horse died, it would greatly affect the cavalryman. Even though it was impossible for the cavalryman to die, his strength would definitely decrease. The second feeling was that both of them had obtained a portion of Regent's power, which was called Lord's power. Normally, only a lord could wield this power, but now, both of them had obtained it. Lord's power was a high-grade power, and after obtaining this power, both the cavalryman and the horse had great potential. If they grew up, they would not be any weaker than a true lord's power. Next were the abilities they possessed. The first ability was the most basic ability of a cavalryman. Every cavalryman could form a cavalryman corps, and their strength and life force would become one. They were like war machines made from all sorts of parts, and they could unleash powerful destructive power. They also had powerful defensive abilities, and when they suffered heavy damage, the damage would be distributed among all of the cavalrymen. The second ability was that cavalrymen had the ability to gather a region's power. When they were in their own country's territory, the region's power that they gathered would be the most powerful. The region's power would flow into the cavalrymen's bodies, greatly increasing their strength. The third ability was called deterrence. When a cavalryman charged, their aura would increase by many times, causing the enemy to feel fear and panic. The fourth ability was Luo River, which was an attack skill for cavalrymen. Countless cavalrymen's power would gather together, forming a ferocious river that attacked the enemy. The fifth ability was River Snake, which was an attack skill for cavalrymen. Countless cavalrymen's power would gather into a massive water snake, which could cause terrifying destruction. Chapter 2455. The sixth type was the River Spirit. When the cavalry of Rock Country was near a river or a body of water, their strength would be enhanced because the power of water would be integrated into their bodies. Next were some offensive and defensive moves. These moves could be inherited by the country, and they were very powerful. For example, the attack of Luo River was the most famous move of Rock Country, and it was also the strongest move of the cavalry of Rock Country. Various kinds of moves could also be created by the cavalry. It depended on what kind of move the cavalry could create. It could be very strong, or it could be very weak. The leader of the cavalry was the soul of the cavalry. He must have outstanding talent and the ability to gather other people. What kind of cavalry could exert terrible power? If the leader of the cavalry was a weak person who was afraid of death, the combat power of the cavalry would be very weak and could be easily defeated. This was the information about the cavalry. Zhao Fu felt that it was not difficult to solve. He just needed to master the corresponding rules of the card world. Now, the rules of the chaos world and the alchemy world have been studied by Zhao Fu. The benefits of the alchemy world's rules were great. It allowed Qin to have the Philosopher's Stone, the Mechanical Wyvern, and the Mechanical Blood Mosquito. They played a big role for Qin. In the card world, besides the powerful cavalry, another big advantage was the ability to create cards. There were all kinds of strange cards that were difficult to deal with. If Qin also had this ability, it would be of great help to Qin in the future. Although Zhao Fu controlled Rock Country and had the conditions to create cards, the key was that ordinary Qin soldiers could not use these cards. This was very difficult to solve because the card ability was born with the talent of the card race. Zhao Fu could crack the card race's card ability by deciphering the alchemy power of the alchemy race. But the reason why everything in the card world could be card was because of the power of the card world. The power and rules of the card world permeated every item. By displaying this card ability, one could turn an item into a card. The power and rules of other worlds were different from the card world. Even if Zhao Fu cracked the card ability, Qin couldn't use it in other worlds. He could only use it in the card world. Zhao Fu pondered whether he should let Qin's soldiers enter the card world at this time. They could build a base in the card world first, and then start to attack the card world. They could also study the various things in the card world. But if Qin enters the card world now, he won't get any benefits. As soon as he enters the card world, everyone will be on guard and attack Qin together. It would be best if he could suddenly enter the card world and take the opportunity to attack some country, catching them off guard and making them defenseless. As such, there was no need to rush into the card world and gather information here first. Zhao Fu smiled. He returned to the palace of Rock Nation and ordered people to gather information from all sides. This was the central region of the card world, and there were far more kingdoms than the outer region, so he had to be careful. If several kingdoms attacked together, even Qin would not be able to resist. The basic forces here were all Phase 2 forces, and most of Qin's forces were Phase 1. In addition to collecting information about this place, Zhao Fu also ordered people to collect various information about the card world, such as some legends, information about the card ability, information about the creation of relics, information about the creation of cards, information about the card creatures. These could help Zhao Fu understand the card world better, and it would be of great help to Zhao Fu. Next, Zhao Fu would need them to crack the card ability and create relics. With this information, Zhao Fu would be able to take fewer detours and reach his goal faster. Zhao Fu sat on the throne and looked at the information. Hillary sat in Zhao Fu's arms, and the 12 female cavalrymen guarded on both sides. The creation of the card world was a little interesting. Originally, the card world was a small world, floating in the endless void. At that time, the card world was hit by other worlds, and the impact was terrifying. The card world spent a lot of energy to withstand it, but it was also heavily injured. The creatures in the card world were almost extinct. Countless beasts, birds, aquatic creatures, and intelligent races died. The grassland became desert, the mountains collapsed, the rivers dried up, and the trees withered. At this time, the card world could be destroyed at any time, and it would take a long time for it to recover. Suddenly, one day, a book flew into the card world and floated in the sky, emitting countless rays of light like the sun, and there was a terrifying wave of energy. It was a golden book, and there were card slots on the pages, but there was nothing in the card slots. The card world was excited and afraid, looking at the golden book that emitted countless rays of light in the sky. It was afraid that the power emitted by the metal could destroy it, and it was excited that if it absorbed the power of the golden book, it could recover quickly. The golden book floated in the air and did not move at all. After observing it for a while, the card world found that the golden book seemed to have been heavily injured and did not have any spirituality. Following this, the card world made a decision to slowly devour and refine the golden book's power. Using the golden book's power, the heavily injured card world quickly recovered. Grass started to grow in a desert, turning into a green area. Trees quickly grew, turning into a forest, and flowers bloomed everywhere. All sorts of creatures appeared. Birds flying in the sky, beasts walking on the ground, small insects, and many fish in the water. There were also some intelligent races, but they were not the card race. The card race's birth was different from these races. The card world had been heavily injured and many creatures had gone extinct, but a small portion of intelligent races had survived. This small group of sapient races received the Golden Book's power and gradually gained a special ability, which was the card race. This sapient race became the card race. At the same time, this explained why everything in the card world could be turned into cards, but the card race could not. After all, they were different from other things when they were created. The other races were created by the card spirit world, grasping a powerful law, but the card race was not created using this law. Moreover, the card race had grasped this law, which was why they had obtained the ability to turn into cards. Following this, the card world completely absorbed the metal's power and refined the golden book, making it a part of the world, which was now the sun. This explained why the card world sun looked like this, and why it was called a card god Sunday. Chapter 2456. The card world absorbed the Golden Book's power and grasped a powerful power law, which was the card law. The world became a card world. Following this, the card world was like the alchemy world and continuously grew stronger in the boundless void, becoming the current card world. This was the information about the creation of the card world, and the person who recorded this information was the original card race. Now, the whereabouts of those card race people were unknown. Some had died, and some had left the card world. Zhao Fu was quite interested in this information, and he felt quite happy after learning about the creation of a world. Zhao Fu knew about the alchemy world and the card world's creation, but Zhao Fu did not know about the outer world and Heaven Awakened world's creation, nor did he have any information about them. Perhaps he did not have a deep understanding of the outer world and did not know much about the mysteries of creation. However, Zhao Fu had gone to the various regions in the Heaven Awakened world, but had not found anything. Zhao Fu became more and more curious about how the Heaven Awakened world had been created. However, only the origin race knew about this, and they did not leave behind any information. Zhao Fu continued to look through the information in the card world. Suddenly, Zhao Fu saw a piece of information about Cavalry Corps. It was information about the King Corps, Emperor Corps, and Emperor Corps. The grade of Cavalry Corps that one wanted to become only required the corresponding requirements. If an ordinary person worked hard, even though the chances were quite slim, it was still possible for them to become Emperor-grade cavalry. This meant that even ordinary people could become top-tier Emperor-grade cavalry, but the process was incredibly difficult. This was information about how easy it was to become a king or Emperor-grade cavalry. The information was that people with king bloodlines, emperor bloodlines, and emperor bloodlines were more likely to become cavalry of the 3 great grades. However, those with these bloodlines all had incredibly prestigious statuses and were looked up to and feared by countless people. How could they become cavalry? Moreover, Cavalry Corps needed many cavalry soldiers to unleash their power. 10 or so cavalry soldiers could not be called Cavalry Corps. In order to form a Cavalry Corps of this grade, one had to have a large number of people with king bloodlines, emperor bloodlines, and emperor bloodlines. Naturally, not many people could do this, so the requirements could be lowered. They did not have to have a pure king bloodline. Just a small portion of the bloodline or a bit of king's power was enough. They could easily become cavalrymen of the 3 major ranks. After becoming the 3 great cavalrymen, they were slightly more powerful than ordinary cavalrymen. This was because they had king's power and could fuse with the king's power from the great cavalrymen, making them more powerful than ordinary cavalrymen. If all of these were not possible, it was said that the Knight Association possessed a type of knight inheritance that could condense one's strength, inheritance, and bloodline into a knight seal. After a king obtained a knight seal, he could give it to loyal knights. Those knights could rely on the knight seal to grow, and it would be easier for them to become king's cavalry. Moreover, there were all sorts of benefits to having a knight seal. Not only could one obtain the knight seal's power, legacy, and bloodline, but they could also activate the knight seal in times of danger, giving them a massive boost in power. The knight seal could also improve a knight's physique and aptitude, increasing their potential. An ordinary knight would dream of obtaining a king's knight seal. This was because this knight seal was very useful. Zhao Fu felt that this was similar to a king's mark. Back then, after Zhao Fu had condensed the king's mark, he had given Gunia, Wang Ergu, and Lume a king's mark. They had also obtained Zhao Fu's king's power, and the king's mark could change their physiques and increase their strength. By now, Zhao Fu's king's mark had become an origin grade mark. However, there was a limit to the number of king's seals, so Zhao Fu could only give them to his subordinates. There was no limit to the knight's seal, and one could give as many as they wanted. However, this would consume one's own strength, inheritance, and bloodline, and ordinary kings would not be able to give too many. Moreover, the method to condense a knight seal was something that only the Knight Association had. Moreover, it was something that was monopolized by the Knight Association, and even if others obtained it, they could not pass it on to others. If one wanted to obtain it, they would have to go to the Knight Association. It was possible that one would not be able to obtain this method from the Knight Association, even if one was a king. One would have to pay a price, complete a quest, or use an extremely valuable item to exchange for it. The Knight Association was one of the largest factions in the card world and had heaven-defying power. Let alone kingdoms. Even empires would not dare to offend them. They were scattered throughout the card world, and as long as it was a card race city, there would be people from the Knight Association. In the card world, only the Knight Association was so widespread, and apart from them, no other faction could do this. This proved the Knight Association's strength. The key thing was that in order to become a knight and obtain the knight title, one had to be recognized by the Knight Association. This involved a lot of benefits, as knights were an occupation that countless people pursued and loved in the card world. However, the Knight Association had it in their hands. As for races other than the card race, such as the giant race, elf race, or naga race, the Knight Association might not have them. In the card world, there were many outlander races, such as the demon race and the god race. However, even though these three races were also outlander races, demon races, and god races, they were different from the three races. The three races in the card world had been changed by the card world's laws, and they could be turned into cards. The power that they had was the card world's card power. In the card world, the card race was the main race, and the three other races had been suppressed and bullied by the card race. As such, the three races did not have a good relationship with the card race, and they were enemies. Among the three major clans, some clans had mastered the ability to turn cards, especially some of the more intelligent clans. They also had the ability to turn cards. Their card ability was not innate like the card race, but acquired through learning. Because they were enemies, the Knight Association would be ostracized and attacked by the three races, so there would not be a Knight Association there. As a country of the card race, Locke had 10% of the world's face. There were people from a Knight Association in every city, and there was also a Knight Association headquarters in the royal capital that managed all of Locke's Knight Association headquarters. This Knight Association headquarters was in charge of this area, but it was not the true Knight Association headquarters. The Knight Association headquarters was at the center of the card world. When Zhao Fu saw this information, he wondered whether or not he should obtain this Knight Seal. This Knight Seal would be of great help to him, and perhaps he would be able to create a cavalry that surpassed the Emperor cavalry. Chapter 2457. It was possible to create cavalrymen that surpassed Emperor level. Zhao Fu's current bloodline was an initial origin bloodline, which was much more powerful than ordinary origin bloodlines. Moreover, Zhao Fu had obtained all sorts of inheritances and a few ultimate powers. If he used these to condense a Knight Seal, the Knight Seal would be incredibly terrifying and could easily destroy a country. Zhao Fu made his decision and smiled as he said, "Call the president of the Lock Kingdom's Knights Guild over. I have something to talk to him about." Hillary asked curiously, "Why are you suddenly looking for the Knights Guild? I have a good relationship with her." Zhao Fu lightly smiled as he said, "I want to obtain the method to condense a Knight's Seal." Hillary slightly frowned as she said, "Knight's Seal? That's very difficult to obtain. Even though we have such a good relationship, I didn't ask for it. Moreover, it requires a very high-grade bloodline and power." Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "Then do you know my bloodline and power?" Hillary shook her head as she said, "You're very powerful, and your bloodline should be a royal bloodline because you have a kingdom." Zhao Fu could not help but smile as he said, "Am I that low-grade in your heart?" Hillary hurriedly replied, "How could I? I'm just guessing based on what you said. Also, is your bloodline and power even more terrifying than I thought?" Zhao Fu smiled as he nodded, "I'll give you supreme power." Hillary and the female cavalrymen looked incredibly shocked. They knew what supreme power meant. It was an extremely powerful power, and there was nothing more powerful than it. Zhao Fu evidently would not lie to them. Just how terrifying was Zhao Fu's bloodline and power? Only a top-grade Knight Seal would have such power. Hillary suddenly smiled as she asked, Then what bloodline do you have, and why do you have such terrifying power? Zhao Fu looked at the gorgeous Hilary and smiled as he said, My bloodline is an origin bloodline, and the power I have is Supreme's power. Immediately, Hilary and the female cavalryman looked at Zhao Fu in shock. They had never thought that Zhao Fu's bloodline and power would be so terrifying. They stood there in a daze, their minds blank, unable to react even after a while. Zhao Fu chuckled and said, All right, call the leader of the Knights Guild over. Hearing Zhao Fu's words, the women reacted and looked at Zhao Fu in shock. Hilary looked at Zhao Fu. Who are you? Zhao Fu put his arms around Hilary's body and said with a smile, As I said before, you will know when Qin enters the card world. Hilary smiled happily and nodded, then turned to Melissa and said, Immediately tell the Knights Association's president that I have something to discuss with her. Melissa also smiled happily in response and looked at Zhao Fu. Now that they knew that Zhao Fu was even more powerful and noble than they had expected, they were all pleasantly surprised and happy, and they even felt honored. After all, Zhao Fu's identity was far different from theirs. Following this, under Melissa's lead, a tall and slender woman with long silver hair and a long sword at her waist walked into the palace. She was dressed in armor and had a long sword at her waist. She was most likely the Knights Association's president, Eileen. Eileen looked quite surprised as she looked at the cloaked Zhao Fu sitting on the throne and hugging her good friend Hilary. Eileen had heard about what had happened over the past few days. At first, she did not believe it because she understood Hilary very well and did not think that she would casually become that man's woman. However, now that she had personally seen Hilary happily in that man's embrace, she believed that those words were true. Eileen knew that this man's power was incredibly terrifying and could change the outcome of a battle. She had already reported this to the higher-ups, listing this person as an extremely dangerous person. Moreover, his identity was quite mysterious, and no one knew where he came from. It would be best if he was not from the Heaven Awakened world. If he was from the Heaven Awakened world, the situation here would be dire. Seeing Eileen arrive, Hilary looked quite happy as she said, Lil Na, you've come. Eileen smiled as she replied, it's been a few days since we last met. Congratulations on becoming the Queen of Lock. Hilary smiled as she said, I didn't obtain this myself. It's all thanks to my man that I can become the Queen of Lock. Eileen looked at Zhao Fu and asked curiously, Who are you, sir? With such power, you must not be simple, right? Zhao Fu smiled as he said, I'm just an ordinary person. Right now, Zhao Fu definitely would not reveal his identity. After all, she was from a Knights Association, and if she did, everyone in the Knights Association would know. Eileen naturally did not believe Zhao Fu's words, but she did not continue to ask. Locke was his world, and offending him would only result in death. She asked, Why have you called me here? Hilary smiled as she said, Lil Na, my husband wants to obtain the method to condense a Knight's seal. Please tell him how to obtain it. Eileen felt quite troubled as she said, Lil Na, it's not that I don't want to help you, but the association has strict restrictions, and we can't easily teach the method to condense a Knight's seal to others. Hilary continued to say, I know. Tell me how to obtain it, and no matter how difficult it is, my husband will complete it. Eileen became serious as she thought about it and said, The first step to obtaining a Knight's seal is to complete a mission from the Knights Association. This kind of mission is incredibly difficult, and it might even be life-threatening. If you don't want to complete the mission, you can donate a rare treasure. However, this treasure must be extremely valuable and must be above the Emperor Heaven realm. Hilary frowned. She definitely did not want Zhao Fu to complete a dangerous mission. However, if he did not complete the mission, he would have to donate an Emperor Heaven realm or above material, and Locke did not have such a precious item. She then looked at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu gave a trace of a relaxed smile and waved his hand, causing a ray of light to shoot out. A spirit grass that was as long as a palm and had 6 leaves, giving off a faint celestial light, floated in front of Eileen. This is the 6th divine grass that spirit realm experts need. It can help spirit realm experts gain enlightenment. How do you meet the requirements? If it was before, Zhao Fu would not have been able to take out such a precious item. However, after going to the boundless void and obtaining countless precious things, he now had the confidence to say this. Eileen looked quite shocked. She had never thought that Zhao Fu would be able to casually take out something that spirit realm experts needed. It seemed that he was even more terrifying than she had thought. Even if he was not from the Heaven Awakened world, he most likely came from the center of the card world, or else he would not be able to take out such a precious item. Eileen's attitude became more respectful as she said, "This item meets the requirements, but you only have one chance to obtain a Night Seal. There is a second requirement for obtaining a Night Seal." Chapter 2458. The first requirement is to pass the Night Associations test. If you can't pass the test, you will not be able to obtain the method to condense a Night Seal. Zhao Fu asked, what is the test? Eileen explained, there are 2 steps to the test. The first is to accept the Guild Elders test, and the second is to pass the Guild Stone Steels test. Zhao Fu smiled as he said, bring me there. I want to take the test now. Hearing this, Eileen nodded. Following this, Eileen brought Zhao Fu to the Night Association. The Night Association was quite big and luxurious, and there were many people coming and going. All of them wore armor and gave off powerful auras. Most of the people here were knights, so they were definitely not weak. Their main goal here was to complete the Night Association's quests and to obtain information and give out quests. Zhao Fu followed Eileen into the Night Association, and everyone respectfully called out, President. As for Zhao Fu, they did not pay much attention to him. They did not know that Zhao Fu was the terrifying figure who controlled the entire Lock Kingdom. Eileen lightly nodded before bringing Zhao Fu to a room and saying, wait here, I need to make some preparations. Zhao Fu nodded and waited in the room. After a while, Eileen brought Zhao Fu to a building. This building was 10 or so meters tall and 10,000 meters wide. The ground was made of wood, and there were powerful restrictions all around. After entering here, Zhao Fu's cultivation was suppressed to stage 3. Even though these restrictions were powerful, they were not as terrifying as Zhao Fu's power. After all, Zhao Fu could break the restrictions at any time and recover his original strength, so he did not have to worry too much. There were now 11 people riding horses waiting here. One was extremely beautiful and had snow-white skin. She gave off a holy aura and wore white armor. She rode a white horse and gave off a holy light. Another had long black hair and gave off a dark aura. She wore black armor and rode a black horse, and her body gave off a powerful dark aura. One of them had long gray-white hair and a pale face. He wore gray armor and gave off a gloomy aura. He rode on a gray horse and gave off an aura of death. One of them had a beautiful face and a slim figure. She had a trace of smile on her face and wore green armor. She rode a green horse and gave off an aura of life. One of them had short violet hair and a seductive figure, giving off a trace of ferocity. He had wheat-colored skin and wore violet armor. He rode on a violet horse, and his body gave off arcs of lightning, making him seem quite powerful. One of them was dressed in azure armor. She had azure hair, azure eyes, and a beautiful face. She rode on an azure horse and was surrounded by a cool breeze. The other had a mature figure and a cold face. She wore ice armor and rode an ice horse, and her body gave off a cold aura. One of them had long blue hair braided into a braid. She had an alluring figure and gave off a gentle aura. She rode on a blue horse and gave off a blue vapor. One was a beautiful woman with a calm aura and a graceful figure. She wore yellow armor and rode a yellow horse that gave off a faint yellow light. One had long, wavy, fiery hair and a fiery figure. She rode on a fiery horse in fiery armor and gave off a fiery aura. One had a stiff expression and a slim figure. He wore golden armor and rode a metallic horse, and he gave off a powerful metallic aura. Eileen said, the 10 of them are a radiant knight, dark knight, death knight, life knight, lightning knight, light wind knight, ice knight, water spirit knight, Earth Knight, Flame Knight, and Metal Knight. They are the elders of the 11 factions in the Knight Association. The Knight Association Stone Steel is controlled by the 10 of them. If one cannot obtain their approval, one will not be able to obtain the method to condense a Knight seal. 11 factions of Knights. Zhao Fu looked at the 11 people in front of him seriously and thought to himself, the Knight Association is quite powerful. They have knights of all factions, and if they formed a cavalry corps, the scene would be quite terrifying. Think about the berserk violet lightning, the rushing rivers, the raging flames, the gray aura of death, the light that shines in all directions, the darkness that devours everything, the firm and massive mountain peaks. At that moment, Zhao Fu started to wonder if the Knight Association was the most powerful faction in the card world. Not only did it control a large amount of wealth and resources, but it was also split into various factions and had all sorts of knights, and none of them were weak. Eileen continued, "Our strength has been suppressed to stage 3. Let out your mount and participate in the test." Zhao Fu looked quite surprised and asked, "Do I have to be a knight to participate in the test?" Eileen looked quite surprised and looked at Zhao Fu strangely as she said, "You're not a knight?" Zhao Fu nodded. Eileen felt a headache coming on as she said, Only specially trained knights can participate in the test. Other professions cannot. I've already given your things to the Knight Association, so I can't return them to you." Zhao Fu frowned as he asked, "Then how can I become a knight that meets your requirements?" Eileen took out a thick book and handed it to Zhao Fu as she said, "This is the Knight Book, and it records all sorts of information and rules related to knights." Zhao Fu looked at the thick book and evidently did not want to read it. So he said, "Can't you make an exception and let me enter the second test?" Eileen did not say anything. The Knight of Light smiled as he said, "This is a rule set by the Knight Association, and it cannot be broken. Since you're not a knight, you're disqualified. Please go back." The Dark Knight said somewhat regretfully, "I wanted to see how powerful you were and see if I could defeat you at the same stage. It seems that I won't have the chance." They already knew who Zhao Fu was, and they were filled with curiosity towards Zhao Fu. They looked at Zhao Fu and sized him up. This was especially so for the Radiant Knights, Dark Knights, Life Knights, Death Knights, Flame Knights, Water Spirit Knights, and Metal Knights. They felt that Zhao Fu had a formless attraction towards them. They understood why. They had different attributes and had always cultivated a single attribute, so they were extremely sensitive to that attribute. They felt that this attribute within Zhao Fu's body was incredibly powerful, which was why he was so attractive to them. However, Zhao Fu had too many attributes, and he had 7 high-grade powers. As such, they were quite curious about Zhao Fu's identity. The Fiery Flame Knight smiled as she said, "There's a power within your body that's attracting me. Can you tell me who you are? I quite like the aura you give off." She did not know that she was playing with fire. Zhao Fu smiled as he replied, "If you want to compete with me, you'll definitely lose. As for my identity, I won't tell you. Can you really not make an exception?" Chapter 2459. The Darkness Cavalryman said unhappily, "I know you're powerful, but I'm not weak either. Moreover, we have the same strength, and there are 11 of us. I don't believe that you can easily defeat us." The Flame Cavalryman lightly harumphed. "If you don't want to say it, then don't say it. I don't want to know right now." In the end, Eileen said apologetically, "I'm sorry. These are the headquarters rules, and we can't break them." Zhao Fu gave a trace of a wicked smile as he said, "Are you sure? Otherwise, don't blame me." Hearing Zhao Fu's words, the women's expressions fell, and they felt quite afraid. Eileen said seriously, "You're very powerful, but please remember that this is the Knights Association. You should know how powerful the Knights Association is. I hope you won't make any mistakes." Zhao Fu lightly laughed as he said, "The Knights Association is very powerful and has a wide network, but I'm not afraid of the Knights Association in the card world at all." Eileen felt quite startled. "You're from the Heaven Awakened world?" Eileen could tell from Zhao Fu's words that Zhao Fu came from another world. or else he would not have said that they were from the card world. The other cavalrymen's expressions fell. The card world was currently at war with the heaven-awakened world, and they were enemies. This person's strength was incredibly terrifying, and they were in danger. Suddenly, the Death Cavalryman said coldly, "His strength has been suppressed to stage 3, and ordinary Emperor Heaven Realm experts will not be able to break through it. Hurry and kill him." Hearing this, the cavalrymen gave off massive power and held their spears as they stabbed toward Zhao Fu. Eileen felt that something was wrong, and she wanted to stop them, but it was too late. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as Zhao Fu's body burned with a rainbow-colored aura flame. A massive wave of power exploded out from Zhao Fu's body, sending the 11 cavalrymen flying back like a flood. Zhao Fu lightly laughed as he looked at them, and his golden pupils continuously spun as a formless energy spread out. Clang, 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 rainbow-colored chains shot towards them from all directions, binding them up and bringing them in front of Zhao Fu. Eileen was not one of them. Eileen understood that Zhao Fu was not stupid. He definitely had made preparations before saying those words, so she could not recklessly attack. Now that things had turned out like this, she did not know what to do. Blood leaked out of the cavalrymen's lips, and their faces became pale. They had never thought that Zhao Fu would be able to break through such a powerful restriction like this. Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "I don't want to participate in any tests right now. Hand over the method to condense the night seal, and I'll spare you." Eileen said, feeling quite troubled. The Night Seal is a legacy technique of the Night Guild, and it can only be obtained through the Night Guild Stone Steel. Moreover, you are from the Heaven-Awakened world and not a knight, so it's impossible for you to obtain a Night Seal. Eileen felt quite confused and did not understand what Zhao Fu was thinking. She said, "Like I said, you need 11 elders to open it. Even though I'm the president of the Heaven-Awakened world, I can't open it." Eileen felt quite confused and did not understand what Zhao Fu was thinking. She said, "I said before that you need 11 elders to open it. Even though I'm the president of the Heaven-Awakened world, I can't open it." Zhao Fu looked at the 11 cavalrymen on the ground and said, "Hurry up and open that place then." The Radiant Knight's expression was cold as she said, "Do you think we'll listen to you so easily? We're cavalrymen, and we have cavalrymen's honor and beliefs. We won't easily betray them. If you want to kill us, just kill us." The Dark Knight looked at Zhao Fu with her beautiful eyes and said coldly, "We're weaker than you, so we'll accept it if we die at your hands." Eileen hurriedly said, "Don't be like this. We can still discuss this." Eileen did not want Zhao Fu to kill anyone. If that happened, not only would the 11 elders die, but she and everyone else in the Knights Guild would also die. Zhao Fu turned to look at Eileen and gave a trace of smile. He stretched out a hand and pinched Eileen's chin as he said, "No need. I've already made up my mind." Eileen's face became slightly red, and she tried to struggle free. The person in front of her was her good friend's man, and she was not a careless person. However, no matter how much she struggled, she could not. A wave of energy flowed out of her body, sealing her power. Now, she did not have even a trace of strength left in her body. Zhao Fu pulled her into his embrace and started to play with her body. Eileen's face became red, and she tried to struggle, but she became weaker and weaker. The knights on the ground looked furious and understood what Zhao Fu wanted to do. They loudly cursed at Zhao Fu, saying, "Bastard, scum, beast." At the same time, they started to feel afraid that Zhao Fu would do the same to them. After being defiled by Zhao Fu, they felt that it was worse than death. The Knight of Light wanted to commit suicide, but there was a restriction binding her, making it so that she did not have any strength at all. Zhao Fu did not pay them any mind and started to act indescribably with Eileen in front of them. The knights' faces became red as they looked at Eileen, the president they were so familiar with, become so lewd and shameless. Their expressions were all different. Some were angry, some were furious, some were embarrassed, and some were filled with anticipation. Soon, Eileen weakly lay on the ground, powerlessly gasping for air. Zhao Fu came before the Knight of Light. and the Knight of Light furiously turned her head away. Zhao Fu was not wearing any clothes, and she did not want to face that disgusting thing. Right now, she just wanted to die. Her holy body could not be violated by anyone. However, Zhao Fu pressed down on the Knight of Light's head and told her to service him. Seeing the Knight of Light being violated, the other knights looked at Zhao Fu hatefully, wanting to cut Zhao Fu into pieces and make him die a tragic death. The Knight of Light resisted and looked at Zhao Fu hatefully. However, a wave of energy continuously flowed into her body, causing her consciousness to become hazy, and she took the initiative to service Zhao Fu. Soon, the two of them started to happily do it. The other knights looked quite confused. They had never thought that the Holy Knight of Light would become so lewd. Soon, the Knight of Light would not be able to continue, and Zhao Fu walked towards the Knight of Darkness. Although the Dark Knight had a cold expression as she waited for Zhao Fu, there was also a trace of anticipation in her heart. She did not know why the man before her had evoked her dark desires. Not long after, the Dark Knight took the initiative to serve Zhao Fu, and then the two of them continued to do indescribable things. Following this, many cavalrymen joined in, making indescribable noises. Just like the cavalrymen from before, these cavalrymen displayed their strengths and madly rode on Zhao Fu's body. But in the end, they were also defeated by Zhao Fu. Outside the room, everything was normal. Many knights came and went, not knowing what had happened inside the room. The members of the Knights Union also did not notice that their president and elder were being violated by a man. During this process, Zhao Fu discovered that the knights of the 11 factions had 11 unique powers. Apex. Chapter 2460. Zhao Fu gathered these 11 powers together, forming a rainbow-colored knight mark within his body. It looked like a knight wearing armor, holding a spear, and riding a horse. The knight mark also gave off a strange and powerful power. This power seemed to be exclusive to knights, and only knights had it. Zhao Fu felt quite curious about this power, but he did not know what it was, so he could only put it aside for now. In the middle of the night, a crescent moon appeared in the night sky, giving off faint moonlight. The room was in a mess, and there were clothes and armor scattered everywhere. Many female knights lay on the floor, their faces red as they panted. Zhao Fu hugged Eileen and the other knights, and after enjoying so many nights, he felt quite surprised. These knights were all virgins, and Hillary and the others had also been virgins. It seemed that there were many virgins in the card world. "You bastard, you've done this to us. Aren't you afraid that the Knight Guild will come after you?" Eileen lay in Zhao Fu's embrace as she looked at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu lightly laughed as he said, "Since I dared to do it, I naturally won't be afraid. Now that you're all my women, you won't betray me." Eileen retorted, "Who said we're your women? As the president of a guild, I'll definitely report this to the higher-ups." Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "I don't believe you." Eileen had already accepted Zhao Fu and would not report this matter to the higher-ups. She coquettishly looked at Zhao Fu as she said, "I don't know what kind of charm you have to obtain us so easily." The Flame Knight boldly laughed as she said, "This is the first time I've experienced such happiness, and I want to do this with you every day." Zhao Fu smiled as he replied, However, ordinary people can't take it and will die under you." The many knights' faces became red, and the Light Wind Knight lightly pinched Zhao Fu as she said, "You can't make fun of us. It's all your fault." The Knight of Light also blushed and agreed. She was the second person to be violated by Zhao Fu, and was even forced to serve Zhao Fu. Thinking about those scenes, she felt ashamed. Zhao Fu laughed a few times. "Do you still have a strength now? Can you activate the Union Stone tablet now?" The Dark Knight rolled his eyes at Zhao Fu. "You've tortured us for so long, and this is our first time. Do you think we have a strength now?" The Earth Knight replied honestly, Yes. Was the Knight's seal that important? Can't you spend more time with us?" The Ice-Cold Ice Knight said softly, "Yes." The Water Spirit Knight nodded obediently, expressing his agreement. Zhao Fu smiled helplessly. "Then let's wait for a while." The Life Knight looked at Zhao Fu curiously and said, "We've talked about this before. You're someone from the Heaven-Awakened world and not a knight, so you can't obtain a knight seal. Could it be that you have a way to resolve this?" Zhao Fu replied, "I have a forbidden technique that can resolve this problem, but I'm not 100% confident, so I'll give it a try first." The Death Knight shyly asked, "What high-grade power do you have? Moreover, after doing this with you, our strength and constitution have greatly increased. It's even more effective than eating spirit medicines." The other knights sensed their bodies and looked delighted. They looked at Zhao Fu with their beautiful eyes, waiting for Zhao Fu's reply. Zhao Fu smiled as he explained, "That's for sure. I have all sorts of high-grade power within my body, and I even have sovereign power. As such, it'll be very beneficial to you." All of the knights looked quite shocked. Eileen asked, "I knew that your identity wasn't simple. Hurry up and tell us who you are and why you're here." It seemed that Zhao Fu asked these kinds of questions the most. Zhao Fu replied, "Because I'm the ruler of a kingdom, my identity and power are quite complicated. After my faction enters the card world, you'll know everything." Everyone smiled and nodded. They believed that Zhao Fu was not a simple ruler of a kingdom. Moreover, even if Zhao Fu was just the ruler of a kingdom, his status was much more prestigious than theirs. Eileen suddenly said, "Everyone, get up and put on your clothes. We're going to open the place that prevents the Union Stone Steel." Hearing this, the women all got up and put on their clothes. Zhao Fu looked quite surprised and asked, "Why aren't you resting for a while?" Eileen said with a trace of smile, "Seeing how anxious you were just then, how could we rest properly? Now that we've given our bodies and minds to you, if you dare to let us down in the future, I won't let you off." Zhao Fu smiled and said seriously, "I won't." Following this, everyone put on their clothes and came out of the room. The Union's people had been worried that something had happened inside, but seeing the elders and president come out, they let out a sigh of relief. However, many of the elders' faces were quite red, and they looked much better than before. Zhao Fu and the others came before a 3-meter-tall stone door. The 11 knights stretched out their hands, and waves of energy continuously flowed out of their palms, forming 11 rays of light that shot towards the stone door. The stone door gave off countless rainbow-colored lights and a massive aura before slowly opening. Eileen explained, "The Union Stone Steel contains many important things, so it has to be highly protected. If you forcefully destroy the stone door, the stone steel will automatically be destroyed." Zhao Fu understood and nodded before entering with the others. Inside was a stone room that was made of bricks. It was 10 or so meters wide, and there was a 3-meter-tall stone steel at the center. There were many knights carved on it, and it gave off a massive might. Eileen said, "All you need to do is go over and place your hand on the stone steel. The stone steel will give off a powerful repelling force, and even if you're from the Heaven-Awakened world, you won't be able to get close." Zhao Fu looked at the stone steel in front of him and said, "Got it." Following this, Zhao Fu walked forwards, and a massive repelling force swept towards him. This repelling force was not very strong to Zhao Fu, and Zhao Fu released a wave of power to easily block it. However, the stone steel gave off boundless light, and images of knights appeared, giving off terrifying power. The air became heavy, and everyone felt a terrifying chill. It seemed that the stone steel had sensed the Heaven-Awakened world's aura within Zhao Fu's body, and attacking Zhao Fu would not be a simple test. Everyone looked at Zhao Fu, planning to stop the Union Stone Steel at any moment. Zhao Fu directly used the 8 Forbidden Blood technique and changed his bloodline to the Lock Kingdom's royal bloodline. The light from the stone steel immediately disappeared, and the terrifying aura disappeared. The images of knights also disappeared, and everything returned to normal. Everyone looked quite confused, not knowing what method Zhao Fu had used to give off the royal bloodline's royal bloodline. Chapter 2461. Following this, Zhao Fu walked in front of the stone steel and placed his hand on it. He felt an armored figure holding a spear and riding a horse charging at him. and before Zhao Fu could react, he was forced back a few steps. Eileen explained, "This is the Knights Union's Knight's power. You have to become a knight in order to receive this power. Moreover, the knight's power will appear in your mind and turn you into a knight. You have to defeat it in your mind to pass the test." Zhao Fu frowned. He had never thought that things would be like this. He had thought that with his bloodline in the card world, he would be able to resist the repulsive force, and he had never thought that it would be so complicated. How could he solve this problem? Indeed, he was not a knight in the card world. Did he really have to practice to become a knight? It would take him at least a month. Suddenly, Zhao Fu thought of something. He had just obtained the knight's power, which was the power he had absorbed from the 11 elders and condensed into a knight's mark. How could this knight's power enter his body? Could it be a problem with the method? However, in front of him was a 3-meter-tall stone stele. Zhao Fu could not treat it like a woman. Perhaps he could try using this knight's power. Thinking to there, Zhao Fu once again went up and placed his hand on the stone stele, activating the knight's mark, and a powerful wave of knight's power flowed out. Boom! An explosion sounded out in Zhao Fu's mind as the stone stele gave off a wave of knight's power and successfully entered Zhao Fu's mind. It turned into a cavalryman wearing iron armor and holding an iron spear, riding on a horse, and ferociously charging towards him. Zhao Fu had to use knight's power to block here, and Zhao Fu could not continue to use the knight's mark's power into his mind. The colorful wave of knight's power flowed into Zhao Fu's mind and split up, turning into 11 knights, giving off different lights and powers. Zhao Fu felt quite surprised. He had never thought that such a thing would happen, and he felt that he had done the right thing in taking over the bodies of 11 knights. If it wasn't for this power, things would not have been resolved so quickly. Next, 11 knights fought against one knight, and needless to say, that knight was surrounded and killed. Boom! At that moment, the knight's stone stele gave off a massive aura, and a massive amount of knight's power flowed into Zhao Fu's body. Everyone was surprised. They never thought that Zhao Fu would really pass the stone tablets test. It was the first time in their history that they had seen someone who was not from the card world or a knight profession pass the test of the Guildstone stele. The massive power continuously poured into Zhao Fu's body, forming runes. These runes were the things that recorded the condensing of the Knight Seal. Suddenly, the Rainbow Knight mark that Zhao Fu had condensed before collapsed and turned into 11 different forces that poured into those runes. The runes continuously condensed and changed, creating a suction force. Zhao Fu's bloodline and other powers flowed into the runes. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as Zhao Fu's body gave off an intense light, and a terrifying power flowed out from Zhao Fu's body. The knights felt a massive might fall on their bodies. This might did not come from their bodies, but it also came from their minds. It was as if they were facing an untouchable Night King. Their power, bloodline, and faith were forcing them to submit, and their bodies uncontrollably knelt on the ground. The knights could not understand what was going on. Why did Zhao Fu give off such a terrifying power? This power made it so that they could not control their bodies, and they knelt on the ground, feeling immense fear. Suddenly, when they sensed this terrifying power, they thought of a legend about the King of Knights. In the card world, a type of person would be born. They were natural-born kings and had unimaginable talents. They were people blessed by the heavens, and they would lead countless knights to change the world. No one could stop them, and those who resisted would become corpses under their feet. This type of person was called the Night King. The Night King was incredibly rare in the card world, and not just anyone could become one. Even emperors would not be able to become one. They were even more terrifying than emperors, and even emperors would not dare to offend them. Was this man in front of them someone who could be called a Night King? The knights knelt on the ground and looked at the person giving off an incredibly terrifying aura. They were certain that the person in front of them was the Night King. This was because this terrifying power had caused their faith, bloodline, and power to submit. Apart from the Night King, no one else could do such a thing. They felt incredibly shocked. They had never thought that they would have any relationship with someone they could not even come into contact with. And yet, that man had become the Night King in front of them. What was more, he was someone from the Heaven-Awakened world, yet he had become the Night King in the card world. This had never happened before. Runes continuously condensed within Zhao Fu's body, and all sorts of power continuously gathered within Zhao Fu's body. The terrifying aura he gave off became more and more terrifying, and the ground cracked. The knights all knelt on the ground, their bodies trembling, not daring to look up at Zhao Fu. In the end, the countless runes formed a mark within Zhao Fu's body. This mark was black and looked like a domineering crown, and it gave off a shocking aura. After the mark was condensed, the terrifying aura from Zhao Fu's body disappeared, and the surroundings returned to normal. A trace of a smile appeared on Zhao Fu's face. Now that he had condensed a night mark, he could directly give it to someone else. The method of condensing a night mark was to help you condense a night mark and not to tell you how to condense a night mark. Condensing a night mark could only be done through the Night Union Stone Steel. Without the Night Union Stone Steel, it was impossible to condense a night mark. As such, the Night Union had a monopoly on this night mark. No one could give out night marks, and they could only rely on the Night Union to obtain them. This Night Seal was not an ordinary Night Seal, but a more advanced King's Night Seal. The power of this Night Seal was much greater than that of ordinary Night Seals. It could grant knights greater power and had other uses. Zhao Fu turned to look at the knights kneeling on the ground and smiled as he said, "You can all rise." Hearing this, the knights all let out a sigh of relief and stood up, looking at Zhao Fu with their beautiful eyes. Now, they felt more and more curious about this man. Chapter 2462. Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "Do you all want to become my horsemen? I can give you unimaginable power." The horsemen smiled and nodded, their eyes filled with anticipation and excitement. Even though they did not know what grade Zhao Fu's bloodline was, with the King's Night Seal's power, he would definitely be incredibly powerful. Following this, the horsemen knelt on one knee in front of Zhao Fu and took out a sword and placed it in front of them. They looked serious as they said in unison, "We are willing to serve our Lord and obey all of our Lord's orders. We will never betray him." Zhao Fu smiled and stretched out a hand, and a massive wave of power flowed out and entered their bodies. Boom, boom, boom. The horsemen felt an immense wave of power enter their bodies, as if an ocean's water was about to enter their bodies. Their minds trembled and went blank. Even though they had been somewhat prepared, they had never thought that this wave of power would be so terrifying, let alone them. Even an ordinary person would become a terrifying expert after absorbing this power. As the massive power entered their bodies, their power, bloodline, and constitution all became stronger, and they felt as if they were rushing into the sky. This power was simply too powerful. The power continuously flowed into their bodies, causing their bodies to give off boundless black light, and the auras they gave off were quite terrifying. A mark appeared on their foreheads, looking like a crown. It was also black, and it was the same as the mark within Zhao Fu's body. Zhao Fu retracted his hand and stopped sending power into their bodies. The horsemen came back to their senses and looked delighted. First of all, their constitutions and aptitudes had been greatly improved. Even though their bloodlines weren't king-class bloodlines, they weren't any weaker than king-class bloodlines, and they could give off terrifying power. Moreover, their cultivation had been at the world realm, but they had broken through to the divine realm. They had needed 10 or so years to break through, but they had broken through in just a few minutes, helping them save 10 or so years. This was something that was incredibly difficult to achieve. Finally, the knight's power that they had now was condensed from Zhao Fu's body. It was very advanced, even more powerful than the knight's power that they had seen in the Knights' Union. This was too shocking. As a person from another world and not a knight, the knight's strength that he had condensed was even more powerful than the top-level knight's strength of the Knights' Union. How'd he do it? The Night Seal was the power that condensed one's bloodline and power inheritance. Now, this knight's power could be said to be the power to destroy the world. What kind of bloodline and power did he have? Everyone's hearts thumped violently as they stared at the man in front of them. They were so shocked that they couldn't even speak. They had greatly underestimated this person. Seeing their shocked expressions, Zhao Fu chuckled and said, "How powerful! I didn't lie to you, right?" Everyone came back to their senses and nodded affirmatively. Eileen looked at Zhao Fu seriously and said, "I've never seen such powerful knight's power before. I wonder if you're someone whose name shakes the entire Heaven Awakened world. Your identity is not something that we can come into contact with." The Radiant Knight also nodded seriously and said, "I think so too. Your identity is definitely incredibly terrifying in the Heaven Awakened world, and you're someone that the entire world knows." The other knights nodded. After all, the knight's power that Zhao Fu had condensed was simply too terrifying. It was even more powerful than the top-level knight's strength of the Knights Union. The Knights Union was one of the most powerful factions in the card world. The top-level power that the Knights Union controlled was definitely one of the most powerful in the world. However, the Knight's power that Zhao Fu had condensed was even more powerful than the Knights Union's top-level power. This meant that the man in front of them was incredibly terrifying. Zhao Fu lightly laughed and said, "You're right. I'll tell you about these things in the future. I'm giving you this power not just because you're my women, but also because I want to nurture you into peerless experts." The knights all grinned. Zhao Fu's words were not wrong. Having this power not only gave them all sorts of benefits, but they could also become peerless experts in the future. This was a massive opportunity for them. Eileen smiled as she said, We know that you treat us well, and we'll remember this and won't disappoint you." The Darkness Knight smiled confidently as she said, "With this terrifying power, even a piece of trash can become a powerful expert. With this power, we'll definitely become peerless experts in the world." The Flame Knight looked at Zhao Fu flirtatiously and said, "Now that our bodies have recovered, we'll properly serve you. You can do whatever you want us." The Holy Radiant Knight's face became slightly red as she thought back to the scene of her serving him. Even though it was quite shameful, she now liked that feeling. Zhao Fu smiled as he refused, saying, "No, I'm busy right now." The knights all looked quite disappointed. Zhao Fu continued, "You can go to the palace in the future. Right now, I need the Knights Association to obtain some information, and I'll nurture you to develop your own factions. I hope that you can use the Knights Association to develop." Eileen smiled as she said, "All right, the Knights Association is yours, and we'll help you gather all of the information you want. However, it'll be quite difficult for us to develop our own factions because the Knights Association's management is quite strict. We might be summoned back to the Knights Association at any time, and we might even be stripped of our current positions." Zhao Fu looked quite surprised. "It's that strict." Eileen nodded as she said, Did you think that I lied to you before? If we easily go against the Knights Association's rules, we'll be severely punished, so we won't help you." Zhao Fu thought about it and said, "All right then, you could be more secretive and prepared to leave the Knights Association at any time." Eileen smiled as she replied, "All right, now that you're our man and have given us such great power, we'll definitely treat you as our leader in the future." Following this, Zhao Fu left the Knights Association and returned to the palace. Seeing that Zhao Fu had been gone for so long, Hillary rolled her eyes at Zhao Fu as she asked, "Why did you only come back now?" Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "I was delayed by some things. Now that I've obtained a Knight's Seal, it's not an ordinary Knight's Seal. Now that you're all standing in front of me, I'll give my power to you." Hillary did not think too much about it and turned her attention to the Knight's Seal. She understood that the Knight's Seal that Zhao Fu had condensed would be incredibly powerful, and she had been looking forward to it. Chapter 2463. The knights and Hillary stood in front of Zhao Fu and nervously looked at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu gave a trace of a smile and stretched out his hand, and a massive wave of energy flowed out and entered their bodies. Boom! Boom! A rumbling sound rang out in their minds, and they felt a massive wave of power enter their bodies, causing them to feel shocked. This wave of energy surpassed their imaginations, causing their power, bloodline, and faith to submit. Their bodies uncontrollably knelt on one knee. Following this, marks appeared on their foreheads. They had obtained Zhao Fu's night mark, and the aura that they gave off disappeared. They were slightly weaker than the Night Association's elders, so they received greater benefits. Sensing the changes in their bodies, everyone smiled in delight. Zhao Fu lightly laughed as he said, "Everyone get up." Everyone came back to their senses and stood up, smiling as they looked at Zhao Fu. Hillary went up and hugged Zhao Fu as she smiled as she said, "The night mark that you condensed is so powerful. It seems that I've underestimated you." As expected from my man. Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "I have something to tell you all." Hillary looked at Zhao Fu curiously and asked, "What is it?" The knights also looked at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "I want to establish 2 cavalry corps. I'll give one to you all." Hearing this, the cavalrymen all smiled. With how powerful Zhao Fu was, he would definitely be able to create 2 extraordinary cavalry corps. Moreover, the night seal that Zhao Fu had given them was monstrous, and if every cavalryman had such a night seal, nothing would be able to stop them. Hillary happily smiled as she said, "All right, I never wanted to be an emperor. I just wanted to be the commander of cavalry corps. How do you want to establish 2 cavalry corps?" Zhao Fu thought for a moment before saying, "With the night mark that I've given you, you will definitely become legendary imperial knights in the future, or even surpass imperial knights. I want to nurture you as the world's top cavalry corps." Hillary and the other knights smiled and nodded. Now that they had obtained the Night Seal, they were confident that they could become imperial knights, and they were quite excited. Zhao Fu continued, "I'm not able to give you high-tier relics and mounts due to my limited resources. I'll prepare them for you later. You should build your own knight group first." Hillary smiled happily and said, "We know." A smile appeared on Zhao Fu's face. Just as he was about to hug Hillary and sit on the throne, Hillary, who was in his arms, asked curiously, "Where's the other cavalry division? Didn't you say to build 2 cavalry regiments?" Looking at Hillary in his arms, Zhao Fu briefly explained what had happened at the Night Association. Many of the knights' faces became red. They understood what it was like because they had experienced it before. Hillary said angrily, "All right. You scoundrel, you violated my good friend behind my back. You didn't let those elders of the Union off either." Zhao Fu said with a shameless smile, "You can't blame me back then. For the sake of the Night Seal, there was nothing I could do. Moreover, they're just as attractive as you." Hillary said coquettishly, "If you don't satisfy us today, we won't forgive you." Zhao Fu lightly laughed. "Yes, I know." The other female knights blushed and looked at Zhao Fu expectantly. They naturally liked that. Zhao Fu hugged Hillary and sat back on the throne. Hillary asked curiously, "What kind of knight group do they want to be? Are they different from us?" Zhao Fu nodded. "There are 12 of them in total. 11 of them are from the 11 factions of a Night Association, and they represent different attributes. Elena is a mystic moon knight, so she has different attributes from the others. I plan to nurture them into an elemental knight group, which is a knight group with different attributes." Hillary frowned. "Doesn't that mean that their knight group will be stronger than ours? We don't have that many attributes." Although Hillary and Elena were good friends, she did not want to be weaker than Elena's knight group. Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "If you have other attributes, you will indeed not be as strong as their knight group." Hillary looked at Zhao Fu with her beautiful eyes and said, "What kind of power is there that can make us stronger? We just need to be as strong as the elemental knight group." Zhao Fu thought for a moment. "Actually, it's not that you don't have an advantage. Compared to them, you have a royal bloodline, and I will nurture you into a royal knight group. Your strength will naturally not be weaker than theirs." Hillary happily kissed Zhao Fu. "Thank you, husband." Following this, Zhao Fu sat on the throne and hugged Hillary as he looked at the various information that he had collected from the card world. In the end, he had gained something, and it was about this region. There was a card land in this region, which contained a very powerful card power. It was a pity that it could not be used as a cultivation ground. If it could be used as a cultivation ground, it would be able to increase one's cultivation speed. Moreover, that place had a very powerful corrosive power that could corrode many things. Those things that were corroded would become cards, which was why it was called the card land. There were many uses for this card land, such as throwing things into it, and those things would automatically become cards. This was because in the card world, card transformations required power, and the higher the level of the card, the more power it would consume. With this card land, there was no need to worry about this consumption, and it could transform a large number of things into cards. The second was that even though the card land had a powerful corrosive power and could not be used as a cultivation ground, if a card was placed there, it would be nourished by the card land and would become more powerful. The third was to transform things that did not belong to the card world into cards. This was what Zhao Fu valued the most. Its powerful corrosive power could corrode things that did not belong to the card world and change their structure, turning them into things that belonged to the card world, which would then be transformed into cards. In other words, it was a place of conversion, able to convert things from other worlds into things from the card world. Zhao Fu felt that this would be useful to him. With this place, he would be able to transform creatures from the Heaven Awakened world into creatures from the card world. Finally, the card transformation land produced a low-level card crystal. This card crystal was a crystal that contained the power of the card and had various uses in the card world. This place definitely had an owner. A kingdom had made that place its territory and forbade others from entering. Anyone who disobeyed would be killed, and if one wanted to obtain that place, one would have to defeat that kingdom. Chapter 2464. This card world was as big as half a world, and Zhao Fu would definitely obtain it. As for that kingdom, he would definitely defeat it. However, Zhao Fu had only just entered the card world, and Qin's army had not entered yet, so there would not be such a large-scale battle. A kingdom was not that easy to destroy, and Qin would destroy it later. Following this, there was information about the Lock Kingdom. The Lock Kingdom was at the edge of the central domain, and there were many kingdoms nearby, about 30 or so in total. However, the largest kingdom was only a dukedom kingdom, which was a kingdom that occupied an entire world. The smallest kingdom was a marquisate kingdom. It was almost impossible for a barony kingdom to exist here. This was because this was the central domain of the card world, and most of its soldiers were stage 2. Barony kingdoms were so weak that they did not even have the power to protect themselves here. Zhao Fu looked at these kingdoms' information and found that there were 5 kingdoms around the Lock Kingdom. The largest was the Thunder Kingdom, which was to the east of the Lock Kingdom. To the north was the Kaku Kingdom, which was ranked 2nd, and to the south was the Little Demon Kingdom. To the northwest and southwest were the Dori Kingdom and Yushui Kingdom. Qin soldiers would definitely enter the card world to participate in the battle, and they could not just stay in Qin's world. After looking at this information, Zhao Fu started to think about which kingdom to attack. These kingdoms were not prepared at all, and Qin's sudden attack would be quite effective. Perhaps they would be able to instantly destroy the other side and end the battle as quickly as possible. After thinking about it, Zhao Fu felt that the Thunder Kingdom was a suitable target. Firstly, it had just been defeated by the Lock Kingdom, and not only had it lost many soldiers, but its morale was also quite low. Secondly, it was the most powerful kingdom around the Lock Kingdom, and it was the most threatening kingdom. Getting rid of it would also deal a blow to the morale of the surrounding kingdoms. Zhao Fu looked at Hillary in his arms and smiled as he said, "I'm going back to the Heaven Awakened world and might only be back in a few days." Hillary felt quite reluctant and said, "Why are you going back to the Heaven Awakened world?" Zhao Fu smiled as he replied, I've been here for almost a week, and Qin is still waiting for me. This time, I'm going to lead my army into the card world." Hillary understood that Zhao Fu entering the card world was quite important, and she felt a bit disappointed as she said, "We will wait for you at the palace." Seeing her disappointed look, Zhao Fu lifted her chin and said with a smile, "When we come back, I will accompany you." A smile appeared on Hillary's face. And, at that moment, A guard nervously reported, "Your Majesty, things are bad." People from the Heaven-Awakened world have appeared in the Dorian Kingdom's territory, and they are incredibly powerful. The Dorian Kingdom has sent people to ask for reinforcements. Zhao Fu looked quite confused. He had never thought that such a thing would happen. Why had a Heaven-Awakened world faction suddenly appeared here? Hilary and the other knights fixed their eyes on Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu thought for a moment and said, "Let's go and see what happened." Hilary smiled and said, Following this, Zhao Fu and the others flew west and came to a place in the sky. There was a massive army ahead. They were all 3 meters tall and looked like humans. They were well built and had large feet and tails. Their bodies seemed to be made of mud, and they gave off powerful earth attribute auras. They were most likely from the Heaven-Awakened world's spirit race. Apart from Zhao Fu and Hilary, there were also many experts from other kingdoms. After all, they were from the Heaven-Awakened world, and the two worlds were currently at war. Seeing that the Heaven-Awakened world's people were all quite powerful, they did not dare to be careless. They understood that they would soon attack the Card World's faction. Looking at the spirit race people in the distance, Hilary said in surprise, "Why do they look so different from you? They look so ugly. Is everyone in the Heaven-Awakened world like this?" Zhao Fu could not help but laugh as he said, "The Heaven-Awakened world is different from the Card World. Our world is made up of all sorts of races, and there might be tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of races." Hilary looked quite shocked as she said, "Your world has so many races?" Even though there are other races in the Card World, the Card race is the master of the Card World. Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "Every world's laws are different. For example, the outer world on the other side of the Heaven-Awakened world is dominated by insects and beasts, while the Gold Refiner world is dominated by the Gold Refiner race." Hilary smiled as she said, "I also want to go to Qin City with you to see the Heaven-Awakened world." Zhao Fu smiled as he said, You can come with me later." Melissa and the other female knights had always treated Hilary as their leader, but they also treated Zhao Fu as their man. They looked at the expectant Zhao Fu and said, "We also want to see what kind of kingdom Qin City is." Zhao Fu smiled and nodded as he looked at the spirit race soldiers in front of him. The spirit race soldiers had a large army guarding outside, and a portion of them were building walls. They did not rashly attack the Card World, and they planned to build a base before doing anything else. This was the middle region of the Card World, and most of the factions here were royal kingdoms. Without detailed information, no faction dared to directly attack. Only an empire would have the right to do as they pleased here. However, empire-level factions were directly sent to the center of the Card World and could not appear here. There were roughly 3 billion soldiers in the army, and they were all Stage 2 soldiers. Zhao Fu felt that this was most likely a royal kingdom-level faction. Zhao Fu frowned as he said, "This place already has Qin City, and now another royal kingdom has appeared. This is not a good thing for Qin City, as it will have one more competitor. Moreover, the Heaven-Awakened world strictly forbids us from attacking them or doing anything to harm them. The Heaven-Awakened world forbids infighting, and everyone is united against those from the outside world. Even empires do not dare to violate this. As with how terrifying the Heaven-Awakened world consciousness is, it can easily wipe out an empire's people without any resistance. Looks like we need to change our plans." Within the depths of the Mudtail army, some Mudtail experts looked at the card race experts in the distance and felt quite relaxed. They did not see any terrifying experts. A tall Mudtail person smiled confidently as he said, "The factions in this region are quite weak, and the card race is not as powerful as the gold refining race. We can sweep through them and show them how powerful the Heaven-Awakened world is." An old Soiltail person at the side said with a solemn expression, "Don't be careless. The car race expert standing in your direction might not be emitting any powerful aura, but he gives me an extremely dangerous feeling. He can easily defeat me." Everyone felt quite startled. Chapter 2465. The elder in front of them was one of the most powerful experts in the Mudtail people, and his strength had reached the Emperor Heaven realm. For him to say such a thing, it meant that the other party was incredibly terrifying. Everyone followed the elder's gaze and saw a cloaked figure and a group of female knights standing in the sky. Everyone's gazes fell on Zhao Fu's body, feeling quite uncertain. The tall mud-tail person asked, "Is that person from the card race really that terrifying? I feel that he looks so ordinary." The elder nodded seriously. "You can't sense how terrifying he is just by using ordinary power. You need to sense it with your consciousness, and you'll find just how powerful the terrifying aura he gives off is." Hearing this, everyone used their consciousness to sense it. Some people felt that it was quite ordinary, but a few people's expressions became quite unsightly as they cried out, "This person is so powerful." Those who had not sensed it felt quite shocked and understood that the elder was not lying. Perhaps it was because they were too weak that they had not sensed it. The tall mud-tail person felt quite scared. He had wanted to run over and challenge the cloaked figure to see how powerful he was. Looking at the others, he felt that they were also quite powerful. If he had gone over just then, he definitely would not have been able to come back. Everyone did not dare to be careless and did not look down on these Card World factions. They planned to stabilize their factions step by step. What they did not know was that the expert from the Card World they had sensed was not someone from the Card World, but someone from the Heaven Awakened world like them. They were just scaring themselves. Zhao Fu stood in the sky and observed the mud-tail people. He found that even though they were quite slow, their defenses were not weak, and they had great destructive power. They were a powerful race. What should he do next? Zhao Fu sank into his thoughts. Now that a powerful Heaven Awakened world faction had appeared, Qin felt quite troubled. However, he could not do anything to harm him. After thinking for a while, Zhao Fu decided to send an army into the Card World to let the other side know that there was a Heaven Awakened world here. This place was so big, and the two factions could develop in different directions. They did not have to clash. Moreover, after destroying the 30 or so kingdoms in the surroundings, most of the surrounding kingdoms were royal kingdom factions. They were quite powerful, and if there were many of them, even Qin would not be able to stop them. Now that there was a powerful Heaven Awakened world faction here, perhaps they would have a helper in the future. Zhao Fu said with a smile, "Let's go back." Everyone nodded. Hillary smiled and asked, "Have you thought of how to deal with this matter?" Zhao Fu responded with a smile and then took them back to Qin. They saw the power of Qin Palace with their own eyes and were shocked. Zhao Fu asked someone to show them around Qin Palace and tell them something about Qin Palace. Then he returned to Qin's palace. Seeing Zhao Fu return, Li Si smiled and respectfully called out, "Your Majesty." Zhao Fu smiled and nodded. "Gather all the ministers now." Zhao Fu accepted the order and gathered the ministers to the main hall. Then, Zhao Fu told them about the information he had obtained in the Card World. The various ministers felt quite shocked and felt that the Card World was a very special world. They were not weak at all, especially with the many cards and powerful cavalry corps. These were all great advantages for them. Zhao Fu looked at the Card World and said, "What's going on?" Zhao Fu said to Bai Shan, "Quickly organize the researchers and have them study the information in the Card World." Bai Shan used to be the manager of the research lab, and he had been by Zhao Fu's side since a long time ago. Hearing this, Bai Shan happily smiled and said, "I understand, Your Majesty, we definitely won't disappoint you." Zhao Fu looked at Bai Qi and asked, "Are the troops ready?" Bai Qi replied, "Everything is ready. We're just waiting for Your Majesty's orders." Zhao Fu smiled and nodded. "Then let's enter the Card World to fight." This time, Zhao Fu planned to send 3 billion Stage 2 soldiers into the Card World. Qi now had more than 18 billion Stage 2 soldiers, and the Alchemy World also needed Stage 2 soldiers. Moreover, Zhao Fu did not want to reveal too much of Qin's strength. After all, if they revealed too much of their strength, the consequences would be quite tragic. Currently, the countries around Rock Nation were in a state of panic because of the appearance of a powerful faction like Tuwei. If it was just them, they definitely would not be able to stop Tuwei, and they were now thinking about how to deal with Tuwei. Apart from building their own defenses, The only other option was to join forces with other factions to resist together. They also gathered many people to discuss this. What do you think we should do? Why did such a powerful Heaven Awakened faction suddenly appear? We really might not be able to stop them. That's right. It looks like it's a kingdom faction. Right now, we can only join forces and see if we can stop them. If not, we can only ask for help from those kingdom factions. How could those kingdom factions help us? They want to devour us, so don't think too much about it. Right now, Thunder Nation is a bit more powerful, and your faction is the strongest. What do you think? You don't seem right. I feel that Rock Nation is the strongest right now. It's a pity that the Parliament did not come this time. Otherwise, if they joined us, we might be able to stop Tawei. Yes, it's mainly because of that person's help. That person is really terrifying. With his power, he will definitely be very useful. Oomph. If you mention that person again, Thunder Nation will immediately withdraw. You can join forces and find him. Don't. They just said a few words. We think that Thunder Nation is the strongest faction, and we believe that you could defeat that person. Right now, they were all worried and discussing Tawei. They had no idea that another terrifying faction had infiltrated the card world and was preparing to attack Thunder Nation. The Tawei Kingdom had unknowingly done a good deed by helping Great Qin attract attention. At that moment, Zhao Fu was quickly leading a large army to attack Thunder Nation. Thunder Nation had been strengthening its defenses to defend against Rock Nation's attacks. Rows of solemn-looking soldiers stood on the city walls. Suddenly, they saw a black mass in front of them, and they did not know what was flying over. As the black mass came closer, they saw a group of massive beasts flying in the sky, and a terrifying aura surged over. Thunder Nation's soldiers' expressions fell, and they quickly spread the news that enemies were attacking Thunder Nation. After hearing this, Thunder Nation did not hesitate, and countless soldiers hurried over. Peak. Chapter 2466. They thought to themselves that the Locked Kingdom couldn't resist attacking them, but luckily they had made preparations. However, when they reached the city walls, they found that the situation was quite bad. Looking at the countless powerful beasts flying over, their expressions became quite unsightly. This definitely wasn't the Locked Kingdom, as it was impossible for the Locked Kingdom to have so many beasts. However, what faction was attacking the Thunder Kingdom? Before they could think too much, the countless monsters had already arrived in front of them. There were eagles with black feathers, fish that could fly in the sky, monsters with human heads and bird bodies. A terrifying aura flooded over, and the soldiers felt their hands and feet go cold as their bodies uncontrollably trembled. Hurry! Activate the defensive barrier. A loud shout sounded out as cards flew out from the town walls. Massive purple energy barriers appeared on the town walls, giving off massive lightning auras. Swish, 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 bows were drawn towards the sky, and the sound of the air being torn could be heard as countless arrows containing immense power shot towards the sky. The many ferocious beasts gave off boundless devil chi to block in front of them. Arrows shot out, but within the devil chi, the boundless devil chi weakened the power of the arrows. The weakened arrows landed on the bodies of the demonic beasts, penetrating their bodies. However, many of the arrows couldn't penetrate the demonic beast defenses. It was as if they had hit an iron sheet, producing clanging sounds as they fell from the sky. Seeing that the arrows were unable to harm the beasts, the Thunder Kingdom's soldiers' expressions became quite unsightly as they took out cards. Boom, boom, boom. Massive sounds rang out as the cards turned into massive bolts of violet lightning that shot into the sky incredibly quickly. Bang, bang, bang. These bolts of lightning were quite terrifying, directly blasting apart the devil chi in front of the devil beasts. They then struck the devil beasts' bodies, causing them to give off lightning and fall from the sky. They heavily smashed onto the ground, creating large craters. The terrifying cavalrymen split into small teams and stood on the city walls. They sent waves of power into their spears and vigorously stabbed towards the sky. Boom! 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 Violet spear lights containing terrifying power and shocking auras ferociously stabbed towards the sky, seeming as if they were going to pierce through the sky. These spear lights were extremely terrifying and pierced through the bodies of the demonic beasts. Blood splattered everywhere and miserable screams sounded out. The corpses of the demonic beasts fell to the ground and dyed it red. Shio, shio, shio. The sound of the air being torn once again sounded out as countless arrows containing immense power shot out, piercing through devil beast bodies and causing them to fall to the ground. The Thunder Nation's people breathed sighs of relief. They felt like they could stop these demonic beasts, and they didn't need to worry too much. Shio, shio, shio. Suddenly, a series of sonic booms tore through the air, and the Thunder Nation soldiers felt their hairs stand on end as terror filled their hearts. Turning their heads, they saw massive beams of light shooting towards them, bringing with them the power to pierce through the world. Bang, 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 before the Thunder Nation's people could react, the beams of light slammed into the Thunder Nation's defensive barrier, instantly piercing through it. Massive arrows landed on the city walls, bringing with them light as they tore apart countless soldiers' bodies. Cries sounded out as corpses appeared on the city walls. Blood dyed the surroundings red, and a bloody stench spread out. The Thunder Nation's people looked quite confused. They had never thought that something like this would happen. Kill! Countless shouts of battle rang out, shaking the entire area. The Thunder Nation's soldiers were shocked, and they turned to look ahead. They saw countless black-armored soldiers charging over like a flood, and they were everywhere. What's going on? The soldiers all looked quite confused. Roar! 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 Massive roars sounded out as the Thunder Nation's defensive barrier was shattered. Countless devil beasts roared and looked savagely at the soldiers on the city walls before ferociously leaping over. A large bird with a strange beak rushed over and opened its mouth, biting dozens of Thunder Nation soldiers before swallowing them. An eagle-like devil beast used its steel-like claws to attack, tearing apart the soldiers' bodies. A powerful devil beast flew down from the sky and landed on the city walls, giving off a powerful aura as it ferociously rushed towards the soldiers, sending them flying. There was also a massive bird that flapped its massive wings, creating a massive gale that blew the soldiers away. The city walls fell into chaos, and the Thunder Nation's soldiers desperately fought back. Cries continuously sounded out, and the number of people dying quickly increased. Boom! With the countless devil beasts as cover, Qin's soldiers were not obstructed at all. They directly attacked the city walls and quickly attacked the city walls. The soldiers quickly climbed up the city walls using ladders. Some used flying chains to quickly climb up the city walls, while others used their hands and feet to climb up. The Thunder Nation's soldiers used all sorts of heavy objects to smash at Qin's soldiers. They used bows and arrows to pierce through the bodies of Qin's soldiers, and they also used bolts of lightning to attack Qin's soldiers, electrocuting them to death. Swish, swish, swish. The sound of the air being torn could be heard as Qin's soldiers desperately fought back. Arrows pierced through the Thunder Nation soldiers, and spears and fireballs shot out, killing many Thunder Nation soldiers. Qin's soldiers had many soldiers, and they were very powerful. They easily attacked the city walls and started to fight with the Thunder Nation soldiers. These Thunder Nation soldiers were definitely not a match for Qin's soldiers. Now, Qin's soldiers were wearing darkness armor and had all sorts of buffs and alchemy power. Ordinary alchemy soldiers were not a match for Qin's soldiers. Arg! Countless cries sounded out as the Thunder Nation soldiers were continuously killed by Qin's soldiers. Blood sprayed everywhere as soldiers continuously fell, and corpses covered the ground. Facing this group of demon-like soldiers, the Thunder Nation soldiers were unable to defend at all. Their hearts were filled with intense fear as they continuously retreated. The battle continued for a while. Countless Thunder Nation's soldiers died, and they no longer had the strength to defend against Qin's soldiers. They looked terrified as they retreated, which meant that the Thunder Nation had lost. Some of the Thunder Nation's cavalrymen had cold looks on their faces, and they were unwilling to retreat. They gathered into groups and charged at Qin's soldiers. These cavalrymen's power was quite terrifying. They all held spears and looked furious. Their bodies gave off light as they quickly galloped on the ground. The light formed arrow-like objects that gave off terrifying power. Peak. Chapter 2467. Bang! Bang! The cavalry corps charged forwards incredibly quickly, seeming to be unstoppable. In that instant, the Qin soldiers at the front were all sent flying and crashed to the ground, coughing up mouthfuls of blood. Some soldiers were heavily injured, and some were directly killed. They lay on the ground and did not get up. Roar! 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 The 10 or so devil beasts loudly roared and gave off terrifying power as they ferociously rushed towards the cavalry corps. It was a pity that they were unable to defend against the cavalry corps and were sent flying. Some devil beast bodies even exploded, turning into chunks of flesh that shot everywhere. Seeing this scene, Bai Qi looked quite shocked. He had personally witnessed the cavalry corps' power and found that they were quite powerful. However, these cavalry corps were only a small portion and did not have much of an impact on the battle. A group of Qin's archers quickly formed a formation and aimed their bows at the cavalry corps, sending a wave of power into the arrows in their hands. Swish, 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 countless arrows containing immense power shot toward the cavalry corps, descending like a torrential downpour, piercing through everything. Charge! The leader of the cavalry corps held his spear and rushed at the front as he yelled, giving off an even more powerful aura. The other cavalrymen held their spears and followed by his side, giving off powerful auras. Facing the sky, full of arrows, they did not feel any fear at all. They formed an arrow-like body of light that gave off an even more terrifying power as it rushed towards the Qin's archers. Bang! 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 The sky full of arrows descended with terrifying power, but they were knocked away by the arrow-like body of light, using up much of the cavalry corps' strength. The cavalry corps continued to quickly rush towards the Qin's soldiers like a ray of light. At that moment, the Qin soldiers pushed out terrifying ballistae, which were 2 meters long and gave off cold light as they aimed at the incoming cavalry corps. Swish, 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 massive sounds of air being torn could be heard as the ballistae bolts containing even greater power shot towards the cavalry corps, instantly descending. Chi, chi, chi. The cavalrymen had already expended a lot of their strength and were unable to defend against the ballista bolts. The bodies of light in front of them were pierced by the ballista bolts, and the ballista bolts contained immense power as they pierced through the cavalrymen's bodies. Some of the cavalrymen were shot down from their horses, some were lying on the ground, and some were standing on the ground. The horses that were equipped with artifacts were also pierced by the 2-meter-long arrows and died on the ground. The leader of the cavalry who was leading the charge was pierced by dozens of ballista bolts. His body and his horse were rooted to the ground, his face contorted in pain. There were corpses all around, and their deaths were unsightly. The ground was dyed red with blood, and the scene was extremely tragic. Roar! Hundreds of massive devil bees stared at a group of cavalrymen and gave off powerful auras as they pounced at them from all directions. Terrifying power shattered the orb of light, and the devil beasts savagely devoured the cavalrymen. Some devil beasts bit down on 10 or so cavalrymen and chewed on them a few times, causing blood to spurt out and pitiful cries to continuously sound out. Some devil beasts directly devoured the cavalrymen, while others used their blade-like feathers to cut the cavalrymen into pieces. Cavalrymen were quite good at suppressing large creatures, but Qin was using numbers to suppress them. Even if they could suppress large creatures, they would not be able to defend against so many devil beasts. The other soldiers had long since escaped, and it was only these cavalrymen who had fought with Qin to the death. Even though they had all died pitifully, they were still a respectable cavalryman. Bai Qi coldly looked at the countless corpses on the ground and gave the order to attack the Thunder Kingdom. Boom! 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 Massive explosions sounded out in all directions as Great Qin's soldiers flooded towards the various regions of the Thunder Kingdom, quickly conquering the various territories. Countless residents ran in terror, and ear-piercing screams sounded out from some places as blood dyed the ground red. At that moment, the parliament was discussing how to deal with the Tuwei Kingdom. A Thunder Kingdom soldier hurriedly ran in with a pale face and said a few words to the Thunder Kingdom's prince. The Thunder Kingdom's prince felt as if the sky had collapsed, and his face became incredibly pale. The leaders of the other factions received this news and looked incredibly shocked. How could something like this happen? Everyone's expressions were quite unsightly. Before, just the Tuwei Kingdom had already made them feel quite worried, and they felt that they would not be able to defend against it. Now, another powerful faction had appeared. Even though they did not know what faction it had attacked the Thunder Kingdom as quickly as lightning, so its strength was definitely quite terrifying. It was most likely a Heaven Awakened World faction, or else they could not think of anyone else. Facing these two terrifying Heaven Awakened World factions, everyone felt quite terrified, and they felt even more powerless. Right now, they could only contact more people and hope that they would be able to defend against these two Heaven Awakened World factions and tell the other kingdoms about this. Only then would they be able to defend against them. Otherwise, they would not be able to stop them at all. The Thunder Kingdom's prince grabbed the soldier's body and hurriedly asked, "Have my royal father and the royal family escaped yet?" The soldier said in pain, "That army was too fast, and the royal family was unable to escape at all. It's possible that they've all been captured or killed." Hearing this, the Thunder Kingdom's prince immediately thought of going back to save them. However, he did not have much power, and he did not have many people, so going back would be equivalent to committing suicide. The prince of the Thunder Nation stood up and looked at the people around him. He said sincerely, "My Thunder Nation is currently facing a great calamity. I would like to ask everyone to lend me some troops and experts. I want to save my family and friends. I will definitely repay you handsomely." However, everyone ignored the Thunder Kingdom's prince. Now that the Thunder Kingdom had been destroyed, the Thunder Kingdom's prince had no value at all. Moreover, that faction was so powerful, and they did not want to send people to their deaths. The Thunder Kingdom's prince looked at the people who had been so courteous to him, but now completely ignored him, and he felt quite furious. He furiously looked around and did not say anything before taking his people and leaving. Now that the Thunder Kingdom had been destroyed, he was nothing and had no value at all. If he dared to argue with these people, he would definitely be killed. However, the Thunder Kingdom's prince had no way to save his family, so he could only anxiously wait and hope that nothing bad would happen. News of the Thunder Kingdom's destruction quickly spread, and countless people were incredibly shocked. The Thunder Kingdom was one of the most powerful factions in the surrounding area. So how had it been destroyed just like that? Just what sort of terrifying faction had done this? After hearing about this, the Tuwei Kingdom's people also looked quite surprised. Top. Chapter 2468. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the Thunder Kingdom's palace was shattered by a powerful force. Countless Qin soldiers gave off powerful auras and rushed in, surrounding the Thunder Kingdom's people, but they did not kill them. The Thunder Kingdom's king led a group of people and looked at the soldiers with a grim expression as he asked, "Who are you people?" A light laugh sounded out in the sky as a figure appeared in the sky. It was Zhao Fu, and he smiled as he looked down at the Thunder Kingdom's people and said, "My faction is called the Qin Empire." Seeing Zhao Fu in the sky, the Thunder Kingdom's king's face became pale. He had never thought that it would be Zhao Fu's faction. They had great enmity with Zhao Fu, and now that they had fallen into his hands, their fates would be quite miserable. The Thunder Kingdom's king felt quite regretful. If they had known that this would happen, they would not have attacked the Law Kingdom for a woman, and the Thunder Kingdom would not have been destroyed. It was a pity that it was too late to say anything now. The Thunder Kingdom's king looked at Zhao Fu and said coldly, "What do you want to do with us now?" Zhao Fu looked at the Thunder Kingdom's people and smiled as he said, "It depends on your performance." Seeing that Zhao Fu did not intend to kill them all, the Thunder Kingdom's king let out a sigh of relief and said, "If the Thunder Kingdom submits to you, can you keep our status and territory?" Zhao Fu could not help but laugh as he said, "You still have a right to negotiate with me? Also, the Qin Empire is a centralized system, not a feudal system. You won't have the status of a royal clan, nor will you have territory." The Thunder Kingdom's king's expression became quite unsightly. This meant that if they submitted to the Qin Empire, they would have nothing. However, the Thunder Kingdom's king thought about it and decided that he did not have the right to negotiate with the Qin Empire. It would be good if he could survive, so he said, "All right, the Thunder Kingdom is willing to submit to the Qin Empire." Zhao Fu gave a trace of a smile and said domineeringly, "Kneel, pay your respects to me." Hearing this, Thunder Nation's king felt a wave of humiliation. He was the ruler of a kingdom, and his status and bloodline were incredibly noble. Normally, anyone who saw him would have to kneel, but now he was kneeling in front of someone else. The other members of the royal family also felt a sense of humiliation. Before, they all had noble statuses. Unfortunately, even if they were humiliated, they couldn't refuse. The Thunder Nation had already been destroyed by Qin. If it didn't kneel down and surrender, they would die. The King of Thunder suppressed the humiliation and anger in his heart and was about to kneel down. "I'm not willing to serve you." A voice suddenly rang out in the quiet scene. Everyone looked over and saw a woman with gold-rimmed glasses. Her beige hair was tied up in a bun, and she had a mature figure. Her chest was very big, and she was holding a book. She was wearing a long robe and was staring coldly at Zhao Fu. She was the Minister of Internal Affairs of the Thunder Nation, as well as the head librarian of the royal family's library. Zhao Fu lightly laughed as he said, "Aren't you afraid of death?" The woman's expression was cold as she said proudly, "Everyone has to die one day, but I choose to die with dignity." The Thunder Nation has existed for 368 years, and it has a powerful legacy and rich culture. If it perishes today, I'm willing to die for it. Hearing these words, a few elderly people stepped out and looked at Zhao Fu as they said, "We won't be able to live for long anyway, so we're only subjects of the Thunder Nation, not slaves of the royal family." Some people with dignity and integrity also stepped out and looked at Zhao Fu as they said, "We're also willing to die for the powerful Thunder Nation. We don't want it to perish in humiliation." Qin soldiers coldly looked at these people and gave off powerful killing intent. Anyone who dared to speak to the Qin kingdom like this had to die, and they had to die miserably. Now, the atmosphere became quite oppressive, and no one said anything. Everyone looked at each other, not knowing what to do. The Thunder Nation's king looked at his own subjects who were so dignified and unwilling to kneel. As the king of the Thunder Nation, how could he endure such humiliation? Even if he submitted to Qin and kept his life, he would not have any chance to restore his kingdom in the future, and he would be controlled by the Qin Empire. The Thunder Nation's king made up his mind and drew a saber, giving off a powerful aura as he called out, "I'm not willing to submit to you either. I challenge you as the king of the Thunder Nation. Do you dare to fight?" Zhao Fu laughed and looked at him condescendingly as he said, "You can try." Boom! An explosion sounded out as the Thunder Nation's king gave off a massive aura as he leapt up from the ground and rushed towards Zhao Fu in the sky. He sent all of his power into his saber, causing it to give off an intense saber light that seemed to be able to slash apart anything. Zhao Fu looked at the Thunder Nation's king charging at him and stretched out a hand. A massive wave of power flowed out as he pressed down. Bang! The Thunder Nation's king felt as if he had been hit by a massive force, and he directly crashed to the ground, smashing out a large crater. Everyone felt quite shocked. This person's power was so terrifying. The Thunder Nation's king lay in the crater and coughed up a large mouthful of blood, and he did not even have the strength to crawl up. Some people hurriedly rushed over to the crater and checked on the Thunder Nation's king's injuries. The first had a mature figure and a large chest. She also wore glasses and had beige hair. She looked quite similar to the Minister of Internal Affairs, but she was more mature. They were most likely sisters. She was also the Thunder Nation's queen and the prince's mother. The second had a graceful figure and had light purple hair. She gave off a flirtatious aura and was quite beautiful. The third had a sexy figure and had flaxen-colored hair. She looked quite gentle, and the fourth wore a black dress. She was tall and slim and gave off a cold and elegant feeling. There were also 2 princes and 2 princesses. The princes looked quite dignified and were 17 years old and 13 years old respectively. The 2 princesses were also around 17 years old and looked quite pure and moving. "Your Majesty," the queen cried out worriedly as she hugged the Thunder Nation's king, who was coughing up blood. The Thunder Nation's king looked around at his wife and children and gave an unsightly smile as he said, "Don't worry about me. Dying like this is my pride. Choose who you submit to." The queen cried as she shook her head, saying, "I'm willing to die with your Majesty. As the queen of the Thunder Nation, I should be buried with Thunder Nation." The gentle-looking queen's gaze was resolute as she cried and said, "I'm also willing to die with your Majesty." The other 2 queens hesitated and did not say anything. As for the 4 princes and princesses, they looked quite afraid. They were still young and did not want to die. The flirtatious queen thought for a moment before saying guiltily, "I'm sorry." Hearing her words, everyone else felt quite startled and had a bad feeling. Chapter 2469. The bewitching princess consort stood up and bowed to Zhao Fu, saying flirtatiously, "I'm willing to submit to you and become your woman to serve you." She did not want to die, nor did she want her daughter to die. At the same time, she had to make plans for the future. After they submitted to Zhao Fu, they would most likely be imprisoned and spend the rest of their lives like that. The cold-looking princess consort thought about it and made a decision. She stood up and looked at Zhao Fu with her beautiful eyes as she said, "I can also serve you, but you have to give me and my family preferential treatment." Thunder Nation's king looked at his 2 wives and felt furious. Even though he wanted them to submit and keep their lives, he did not want his women to serve another man. What's more, this man had destroyed the Thunder Nation. "The 2 of you are not fit to be Thunder Nation's princesses, nor are you fit to be my women," the first princess consort said angrily. "How can you face His Majesty? His Majesty has always treated you well." The ministers who had originally wanted to be buried with the Thunder Nation also shouted angrily, "The 2 of you are a disgrace to the Thunder Nation. You've lost all face for the Thunder Nation. How could you do something so immoral?" Bang! Bang! Muffled sounds suddenly sounded out as the ministers were sent flying back by a massive force. They crashed to the ground and coughed up a large mouthful of blood. Boom! A terrifying aura covered countless people, causing them to fall into terror. Zhao Fu said domineeringly, "They are my women now. Whoever dares to say another word will die." The bewitching princess consort and cold-looking princess consort gave a trace of a smile. Since Zhao Fu had accepted them so easily, it seemed that he was interested in them. They did not have to worry about what would happen in the future. Zhao Fu then said, "Take away those who are unwilling to submit and take them to the palace." Qin's soldiers went up and took them away. Thunder Nation's king looked at the Qin soldiers, taking his women and daughters to the other side, and thought of something. He furiously yelled, "Release them, or I'll kill you." A few of Qin's soldiers snorted coldly and kicked Thunder King. Now, Thunder King's power was sealed by Zhao Fu, and he could not resist at all. Then, he was dragged away by force. The 2 princesses cried and struggled, but they were still brought into the main hall by the soldiers. In the end, Zhao Fu sat on the throne of the State of Thunder and looked at the 7 women in front of him. There were 4 concubines, 2 princesses, and the Minister of Internal Affairs. Among the 7 of them, Zhao Fu was most interested in the pair of sisters, the first princess consort and the Minister of Internal Affairs. Now, one of them was crying with her head lowered, while the other was coldly looking at Zhao Fu with an arrogant expression. Zhao Fu walked in front of the two of them and pulled them into his embrace, playing with the things in front of their chests. The two of them vigorously struggled, and, as the younger sister of the Minister of Internal Affairs, she angrily cursed at Zhao Fu. "Scum, let go of me." However, as Zhao Fu continued to play with their bodies, they also lost the ability to resist. They leaned on Zhao Fu's shoulders, blushing as they panted. The beautiful princess hadn't thought that Zhao Fu would be most interested in them, and she felt quite envious. However, she didn't want to fall behind, so she took off her clothes and threw herself into Zhao Fu's arms. Soon, indescribable noises sounded out in the main hall. The Prince of Thunder Kingdom was anxiously waiting for news, but he didn't get any news. He had never thought that his mother would be under Zhao Fu's body, with a lewd expression and shameful noises. Her younger sister, the arrogant Minister of Internal Affairs, was even more lewd than her, and kept demanding things from Zhao Fu. In the prison, Thunder King's face twisted with anger as he cursed. He knew what was happening, and that his wife and daughter were being violated by that bastard. On the other side, Qin's soldiers attacked the major territories of Thunder Kingdom. If they wanted to completely overthrow the feudal system, they had to kill or conquer all the lords, and then use powerful force to suppress the territories. In this way, the forces would not be in chaos. If there was no powerful force to suppress the territories, those lords would definitely be dissatisfied with Qin. Even if they surrendered, they would not do it willingly, and they might rebel at any time. Moreover, the feudal system was based on the basis that whoever made contributions could have territories and titles. But now it was the Qin world that was attacking them. The Qin world was not a feudal system. Those who made contributions would not be given territories. If the people of the card world did not make contributions, they would naturally be convinced. However, it was not something that could be done in a short time to change the minds of the people of the card world. It would take a long time. Without too much difficulty, Qin's soldiers conquered all the territories of Thunder Kingdom. Those lords, big and small, were either killed or taken to the palace of Thunder Kingdom. Bai Qi counted the results of the battle. In total, they had gained more than 2 billion people of the card world, more than 200 million soldiers, and countless other materials. The only pity was that almost all the cavalry regiment of Thunder Kingdom chose to die in battle, and no one was willing to surrender. Bai Qi had seen the terrible cavalry regiment with his own eyes, and he very much wanted to take them under Qin's command. If they worked for Qin, they would definitely be of great use to Qin. Now that almost all the cavalry regiment had died, Bai Qi did not care too much, because he believed that His Majesty would definitely cultivate a more powerful cavalry regiment. Bai Qi also had a 100% faith in Zhao Fu. Bai Qi wanted to report this matter to Zhao Fu, but he found that the gate of the hall was still closed, and there was a boundary protecting it. He understood what had happened inside, and he had no opinion on one thing. After all, Zhao Fu was the emperor of Qin, a supreme person who could do whatever he wanted, and no one could restrain him. Moreover, he hoped that Zhao Fu would be like this. Over the past 10 years, although Qin had become more and more powerful, Zhao Fu still had no children, and Qin's bloodline had not been continued. Although the Ying family also had the bloodline of Qin, it had been affected by the fate of Qin Empire, and now it had also become a royal bloodline. However, their bloodline was very different from Zhao Fu's bloodline, and the gap was simply indescribable. Qin was not the Qin of history, and the orthodox royal bloodline of Qin should be based on Zhao Fu's bloodline. The bloodline of the Ying family was only qualified to be a collateral bloodline. Seeing that Zhao Fu was enjoying the women inside, Bai Qi gathered many generals in another place and distributed the following tasks. In the chaotic world and the alchemy world, Qin first found an uninhabited place to build a base, and then used this base as the main base to develop around. Now, however, it was different. Now that Qin entered the card world, he had conquered a country and did not build any base. So Qin decided to use Thunder Kingdom as the base and develop around it. Chapter 2470. Zhao Fu had already given orders for this, so Bai Qi and the other generals only had to follow Zhao Fu's orders. The war gates and exchange stone steels were constructed near the royal palace, and the Thunder Kingdom's defenses were strengthened. The structures that Qin had destroyed also had to be rebuilt. It was impossible for Qin soldiers to complete all of these things, as Qin soldiers still had to defend the various regions and borders. The situation was not stable, and they needed Qin soldiers to suppress and defend. Bai Qi gave the order to bring over the Thunder Kingdom's ministers who were willing to submit to Qin. He first looked through their information and got rid of those who had no ability or had questionable morals. He then said, "If you're willing to submit to Qin, then Qin will not mistreat you. Right now, Qin is in need of people, and there are many things that you need to lead the residents to complete. If you have any dreams or ambitions, just tell me. I, Qin, can fulfill your dreams and give you massive power and a position far higher than anyone else's." The other ministers smiled. They felt that Qin was a very good faction. It was very powerful and had strict military discipline, and its generals were all very talented. Only a country that was powerful, respected talented people, was fair in rewards and punishments, valued the country itself, had ideals and ambitions, and had foresight would be able to do so. As such, it would place great importance on them and value their dreams and ambitions. They were very happy to serve such a faction, as the future was bright. They all obeyed. Following this, the ministers left. Some went to comfort the terrified residents, while others led the residents to build various structures. Some of the Thunder Kingdom's residents and soldiers escaped to the surrounding kingdoms, and the surrounding factions confirmed that this was a faction from the Heaven Awakened world. Everyone looked terrified as they strengthened their defenses and continued to communicate with the other factions, discussing how to deal with this. The Two-Way Kingdom's people were quite curious about this faction, and they sent people to investigate. They found Qin's soldiers dressed in black armor and had cold expressions, giving off terrifying auras. They quickly went back to report, "This faction is extremely powerful and is not an ordinary faction." Even they felt a trace of fear. Hearing this news, the leaders of the Two-Way Kingdom also attached great importance to it. Some powerful cultivators even sneaked into the Two-Way Kingdom and found that Qin was indeed very powerful. Then, they went back to discuss this matter. With the Heaven Awakened world's rules, they could not be enemies. Even if they did not get along, at most, they would not help each other and would not do anything to harm each other. This was a benefit. Secondly, because they had an additional force, their development would also be somewhat restricted. This could be considered as a disadvantage. However, if there is any great danger, they can still help because they have a common enemy, and the people of other card worlds also see them as enemies. The Two-Way Country planned to send someone over to make friends with the Thunder Country after the situation in the Thunder Country stabilized. Hillary and her knight were still in Qin, looking at all kinds of things in shock. They had no idea what had happened in the Thunder Country. The elders and the president of the Knights Union who knew about this were also shocked by the power of Qin soldiers. They had destroyed a country so quickly. The Thunder Nation was one of the strongest nations in the vicinity, but it didn't have much resistance against Qin. Because this had happened too suddenly, the Thunder Nation's Knights Union had not been able to escape, and they were now trapped within the Thunder Nation. The higher-level Knights Union gave orders to the surrounding unions to prepare to rescue the people from the Knights Union and gather all information about this faction. The Knights Union took this faction quite seriously. Right now, the Knights Union did not have any plans to attack the Qin Empire because this was the planar war. There were countless Heaven Awakened world factions in the card world, and even though the Knights Union was powerful, it could not defend against the entire Heaven Awakened world by itself. If something like this happened, they could only ask the Union's people to investigate and pay attention to their own safety. If anything happened, they could immediately retreat. Only if the situation was very serious and posed a great threat to the Knights Union would the Knights Union consider sending out soldiers. Now, Eileen had received orders from her superiors, and she and the other elders smiled. They did not have to worry about Qin at all, as they were that man's women. Moreover, they thought about how to deal with the Thunder Nation's Knights Union. Rescuing those people was quite simple for them, and after completing this task, the Knights Union would give them great rewards. They could use these rewards to develop their own factions, and they had already started to form their own cavalry corps. Finally, back at the Thunder Nation's palace, Zhao Fu lay on the ground and hugged his women. On his left was the Minister of Internal Affairs, and on his right was the First Queen. The pair of sisters looked incredibly good, and even Zhao Fu felt a bit infatuated with them. Now, their faces were quite red, and they powerlessly leaned against Zhao Fu's embrace as they panted. By now, Zhao Fu knew the sisters' names. The older sister's queen was called Helensa, and the younger sister was called Hisami. There were also 3 other queens, who were called Diamina, Beatrice, and Camis. The 2 princesses were called Lydia and Betty. Zhao Fu liked those sisters the most, so he had done it with them the longest. This made the other women feel quite envious, but they were also greatly satisfied, and they were also panting in Zhao Fu's embrace. Helensa rested for a while before looking at Zhao Fu and pleading, "Can you let go, my man, now?" Zhao Fu thought to himself with a smile. Beside him, Hisami said softly, "Letting go of my brother-in-law will be good for you. It can help you rule the Thunder Nation, and we sisters belong to you now. You don't want us to be sad, do you?" Zhao Fu turned to look at Hisami and said with a smile, "So you're willing to submit to me now? That's not what you said before." Hisami blushed. "You've already treated me like this. What else can I do? Also, I don't want my sister to be sad. Also, you must not hurt my family before I'm willing to be your woman." Zhao Fu chuckled. "No problem. I'll let go of the Thunder Nation King, but I'll restrict all of his power and restrict him to a certain area. If he doesn't agree, I'll let him go." Helensa happily kissed Zhao Fu and said with a smile, "Thank you." Zhao Fu said with a smile, "It's getting late. I still have a lot of things to deal with. You can rest here for a while." The women nodded with smiles on their faces. Zhao Fu put on his clothes and left the hall. However, he did not expect that Bai Qi had already taken care of everything, and he did not even need to give any orders. It was good to have such a general. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.